All right, hey everyone. Zach Bowden is here along with myself, and we're going to be talking all the new Surface stuff for you guys today. We actually have some of it, and if you may have noticed, I'm actually sporting the Surface earbuds for this podcast, and this actually solved a problem I was just talking about last week. Which, if you watched the video podcast last week, in the last few weeks, I always have one wired earphone in and it's the wires always bother me and it's always snagging and pulling in my ear. And so this is my solution. So this is actually working pretty well. I just paired these a few minutes ago with the PC. I did have some interference. It was paired with my phone too, and it turns out it turned off that Bluetooth and it was better. But we'll be talking, of course, about the Surface earbuds a little bit later. But first, we're going to talk about today Surface Book 3, which was just announced. We're going to talk about Surface Headphones 2, which I have here, including the new black ones, which look really great. So we'll talk about the new features as well. We're going to talk about Surface Go 2, of course. That's the big one, which now has a Core M3 processor. You get LTE, thinner bezels. I have that here as well. In fact, I've already run some benchmarks on it. So if you want to go to Windows Central right now, it's pinned up there, and you can go check those out to see how this device performs. And then, of course, we'll talk about Surface earbuds, as well as some of those new accessories that were announced, including a Surface Dock 2 and a Surface Travel Hub. And then I believe there's a keyboard and mouse, which who cares? But all the keyboard and mouse people at Microsoft are like, what the hell? We spent so much time on that. And that's all we get. But yeah, let's go from the least exciting, which is kind of Surface Book 3, which is kind of odd to say.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, Surface Book 3 is a refresh. And and we'll Zach, I want to get your opinion on this stuff too. We'll talk about that. I just want to start this conversation off first talking sort of about that. And like I realize, for us in tech who cover this stuff, it's boring, and it's just like they refresh their hardware. And I'm cutting Microsoft a little bit of slack here because Dell does this as well. I've talked about this a lot in the podcast. Dell comes out with a new XPS device, like that new XPS 13, right? Expect to see that same device for the next 3 years. It's just going to get minor refreshes from here on out, right? That's how Dell operates. Now they're in the middle of refreshing their XPS line. That's why, there's rumors of a 17-inch coming and there's a new 15-inch. And so those are like big exciting things. But now, like I guarantee you, next year Dell XPS 15 will look the exact same as what's going to be announced this year. And Apple does this too, to be honest. Like their MacBooks get a redesign every 5 years, including when they break the keyboard, and they stick with it for like 4 of those years. And so, to give Microsoft just a little some room here, they're a pretty small hardware division comparatively, compared to HP, Lenovo, and Dell, who not only have much bigger research and engineering investment for this stuff, but they also sell way more, right? And that goes hand in hand, but they don't have quite the team to devote to redesigning the Surface Book every 2 years or something like that. That said, also in our conversations with Surface engineers in the past and even Panos, like they don't just do redesigns for the sake of redesigns. They do it when the technology allows them to then push boundaries and do something new. A real good example of this is actually the Surface Pro X. The reason the Surface Pro X exists is simply because there's an ARM processor that allowed them to do it. They couldn't do that device with Intel. And that's why the device kind of came out. So my guess is there's a lot of new processors, right? There's AMD stuff, which you need to redesign everything you can't just throw an AMD chip in, right? You got to redesign the entire board. You got to redesign everything to put that chip in. There's also new screen technologies, all that. So my guess is probably Surface Book 4 will probably see a major refresh, and we're going to get all these new features and redesigns. But it's not just the exterior. HP does this, right? HP is really the kings of let's just change the exterior for the heck of it. And Microsoft doesn't quite do that. Microsoft also is catering a lot here to its corporate audience, its enterprise users who want consistency with devices. So with that said, I know that's disappointing, and a lot of you are going to be like, well, that's lame, but these are the reasons I'm told, and I think some of it makes sense. That said, let's talk about the Surface Book 3. All right, so there are quite a number of internal changes to this. I actually put them all in the article. So some of these I know don't sound exciting, but when you put them all together, it's actually what makes a good device experience. So, for instance, the Wi-Fi, it's Marvel is gone. Hey, finally. So, if you don't know what that is, so Surface devices have for a long time, except the Surface Go, that was the first to break with it, have all used Marvel Wi-Fi chips. And a lot of people hate these chips. They don't have very good performance. There's a lot of issues with them. They've always been sort of this every year a new Surface comes out. We're like, why are they using Marvel again? But this one finally now ships with Intel. So it's going to use Intel Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5. So that's really nice. Even if you don't have a Wi-Fi 6 router, Wi-Fi 6 chip does work better even with an AC router, so it's still good. You now get up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's good. Not a surprise. Surface Laptop can do that too, so that was the least they could have done. The RAM, though, does jump from DDR3 to LPDDR4X. That's just a lot of numbers, but what that means, it's faster RAM and it's more power efficient. Again, this is fully expected with any 2020 device, but it's nice to see it here. For storage, you can now get up to a 2 terabyte SSD. That's in the 15-inch model, which is pretty nice. And that SSD is faster. I don't have mine yet, so I haven't been able to benchmark it. But Microsoft did tout that this is their fastest SSD to put in a device. So we'll see what that means. But again, not exciting. But when you put all that together, Wi-Fi, faster RAM, faster SSD, it actually does make a better computer. And this is why I try to tell people it's not all the processor because you have these bottlenecks in other spots. CPU, 10th gen Intel Core i7 in the 15-inch and Core i5 and i7 in the 13-inch model. So these are just 10th gen Intel U series chips. They're going to be TDP'd a little bit higher. That means instead of 15 watt, they go 25. They can get a little bit more performance than your standard Ultrabooks. Again, fully expected. Had they gone with AMD, they would have had to really redesign the entire motherboard to make that happen. I think they just didn't want to do that this round. And I think that kind of makes sense. For GPU, so it goes to a 1650 Max Q, that's in the 13-inch, and a GTX I messed that up, 1660 Ti Max Q, and that's in the 15-inch. There's also now an option for Quadro RTX 3000, which is if you're not if you're a consumer and you hear Quadro, don't worry, it's not important to you. But Quadro is actually super important to engineers, scientists, AutoCAD people, because they actually use specific apps that are certified to run with Quadro cards. And so this is really a play for those people, for the engineers, scientists, architects, these kind of people who will want that option. So that's going to be in the business version of the laptop. Don't convince yourself to go get a Quadro thinking it's going to be better for gaming. It absolutely will not. It'll be worse for gaming. It's not optimized for gaming at all. So don't think it's like some super powerful system that you need to get. Don't. But still, it's a nice play towards the more professional audience. The charger jumped to 102 watt for the 13.5 inch, which is good. And the 15 inch, which notoriously had a little bit of issues with the charger, where it could basically meet the charging demand, but if you ran the CPU at its max performance, in theory, and sometimes when you were hardcore gaming, you could actually drain the battery while it's maxed out. Well, that should be fixed now. It's a 127 watt charger, which is much bigger. Should also handle the graphics card and all that kind of stuff. Dolby Atmos audio, they claim all of this comes together and gives you a 50% more powerful Surface Book. Now, the Surface Book hasn't been updated since late 2017, so it's been 2.5 years. I find all of this exactly what you would expect and want in a refreshed device for 2020. So there's nothing surprising here. It's still nice to have. And the battery, you're going to get about a half hour more battery life. So not very exciting. The trackpad is not even bigger. Zach and I thought at least the trackpad might be bigger because we did that in Surface Laptop and Surface Pro. Nope. Trackpad's exactly the same. Does it need to get bigger? No, it was fine where it was, but it would have been nice. Is the display still glossy? Yep. As I said last week, I did not expect that to change, and it didn't change. Everything else about this device, as far as we know, is exactly the same, but the overall performance of it is much more improved. And that's kind of it. Zach, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, regarding the design, I think you're right. Us in the tech space, it is a shame that it is essentially identical to the Surface Book 2 and the Surface Book 1. There's been very little design changes to the Surface Book since it first debuted in 2015. But considering the audience that this device is aimed at, I don't see that as a problem for most people, because you've got to remember the Surface Book isn't it's an expensive device that I think is aimed solely at professionals and customers who aren't, air quotes, fans of technology or fans of Microsoft products. They just buy the thing because they need it for work and it does what they need to do. So the businesses and customers, for the most part, who are buying the Surface Book, I think are fine with the design remaining the same for generation to generation. But this is the fifth year now using this Surface Book 3 design, so I would expect maybe the next Surface Book refresh, which might be in 2022 at this point, considering how often does the book get refreshed? Once every 2.5 years, is it about that?
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
seems like the laptop and Pro
a
and
yearly.
apparently Go now are on yearly, but then the book and the Studio are probably on
Was the
two
Go?
and a half years.
Wasn't the Go 2018? I'm pretty sure it was 2018.
Was it really?
Yeah, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the Go's a year and a half, but only because there's not much they can do to it because the low CPUs anyway. There's not really much anywhere they can go with it other than ARM, as we've talked about in the past. But with the Book 3, I think the Service Book 4, whatever, I would be surprised if we don't see some form
Yeah,
of
you're right.
redesign.
Sorry, it's August 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, see, it's been a while for the Go as well. But I think the Go. I don't think the Go's aged poorly. I think maybe the bezels dated it quite a bit at launch, but otherwise that was it for the Go. I still think the Go One is a fine PC. A lot of people didn't like the performance. We'll talk about that in a bit anyway. But yeah, I cannot believe they didn't at least increase the size of the trackpad on the Book 3. How the laptop now has a bigger trackpad than the book. It makes no sense.
It I don't want to be mean. It sounds like they phoned it in, but yeah, these changes. I mean, because it's not trivial what they did. I want to make that clear. Like
Mm,
upgrading all that hardware, matching all the thermals. It's a lot of work, right? That said, they clearly didn't want to touch the chassis, the external
yeah.
part at all, or any of the other core components, and that's a bit of a letdown. It's also a letdown. It doesn't have RTX graphics now. That one I'm a little bit more lenient on because to go with RTX and a 2060 into this thing, it would the wattage required for that would have really it's higher than 127 watts. A lot of those devices go into the 150 watts and more, and you really start getting to some thermal constraints there. And now that starts really changing what the Surface Book is. I want to be clear: the 1660 Ti and the 15-inch gives you like a 40% graphics boost over the last chip. Now, again, it's been 2 years, so you kind of expect that, but that's not insignificant. Microsoft is saying that basically, if you have Xbox Game Pass, they purposely called that out too, and you game on this, you're going to hit 1080p, 60 frames per second gaming, which is kind of what you would want in this kind of device. Don't forget the Surface Book for these criticisms. There's nothing like it on the market, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like a Spectre X360 15, and I've always been kind of meh on that device, but there's really nothing that is a convertible that has a screen pop off and does the inking that's in like a 15-inch
Yeah.
and is this powerful.
That was going to be my other point. Is that although the design is now 5 years old, you don't really have a competing design on the market that's better in any way. I mean, you got the 360 hinge things, but that's not the same as a completely detachable tablet. The Surface Book is the only product that still offers that for that form factor, and which is why I think Microsoft's able to get away with keeping the same design for longer, because there is nothing else. You still, when you buy a Surface Book and use a Surface Book, it is different from buying a Dell XPS 15 or a HP Spectre X360. It is a different experience. It's some in good ways and some in bad ways. I know a few people aren't a huge fan of the whole having to press the button to detach the screen. It takes a second and stuff. Some
Yeah.
people would prefer to flip it all the way back, but the book is a big device, and flipping it all the way back would mean you still have to carry that heavy keyboard a base with the
Yeah.
graphics card in it and stuff, which would add like quite a bit of heft to it. So it's nice to be able to detach it and use it as a clipboard, as Microsoft describes it. I am curious, Dan, do you know if the battery in the 15-inch is bigger than the one in the 13-inch? Because on the Surface laptop series, it's the same battery size across both.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I do have the specs in there in the announcement post, and I believe it's a 70 watt hour versus 80 watt hour or
Right.
something
Okay.
like that. But yeah, it's a bigger battery.
That's good
Yeah.
because that was one of the weird design choices Microsoft made with the laptop 3, where even though the 15-inch has a bigger screen and more pixels to push, it has the same size battery as the 13-inch. So technically, the 15-inch gets slightly worse battery life, but that shouldn't be the case with the Surface Book 3, which is good. No Thunderbolt 3 still. That's
Yeah.
still not here. Lots of people still asking why. What's Microsoft's official stance on it again? It's just not. It's just not compatible with
Their
enough things.
official stance has always just been, I mean, with Panos, we talk about how it was still kind of confusing and that was the last time I heard him comment on it.
Mm.
But conveniently, I say that, in quotes, a week ago, we got that video. We talked about this last week. I think we did. Actually, we might have forgot to talk about it. But yeah, a week ago, an internal video from Microsoft leaked online. And it was an engineer explaining why. Oh, no, we did talk about this. Why they don't use Thunderbolt 3. It's a security reason. Thunderbolt 3 gives direct memory access, and it's a security vulnerability. You can rewrite stuff. And, I don't want to get into, I don't know all the technical things. We can go watch that video. And it was cool about that video, though. It wasn't meant for the public. So it's not like some PR spiel. This was purely like internal usage. But yeah, it's an internal security reason, basically. That's not going to make a lot of people happy, and I totally get that. But I said this before, where I have all these devices. I never use Thunderbolt 3. And in fact, one of the downsides of Thunderbolt 3 is that I do have a Thunderbolt 3 external drive, and it is fast. Don't get me wrong. It's fast, and it's only relevant if you're transferring gigabytes of files routinely. If you're just going to transfer a couple of documents, this is not worth it, especially the cost of it. But the problem with that drive is I can't use it on any other computer that's not Thunderbolt, including my desktop. So I play because it's not backwards compatible, the drive, which is really annoying. I think that may be fixed in some other ones, but this is the problem you have. So I can only use it on like a single any laptop that has Thunderbolt 3, but not any other device, which stinks. Sometimes you go up to someone's computer and like, hey, mind if I plug this in? And you can't, it won't work, right? So that's the issue. We should also point out the 15-inch still does have, though, the Xbox wireless controller support, which is always a unique thing about that device. The 13-inch doesn't have it, but the 15-inch does. So it allows you to do gaming and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the other things I think Microsoft has done with this version is, have they reduced the price on some of the SKUs? Because in the UK at least, the baseline 15-inch model for the Surface Book 2 was, I think, £2,400. This new one is only £2,200, the sort of entry level 15-inch, which is no slouch. It's a Intel Core i7, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage with the 1660 Ti. So I don't think it's the case for all models, because the Book 3 starts at $1,599, which is for an Intel Core i5 with no graphics, no discrete graphics, which you should not buy. You should absolutely skip that model. If you're buying a Surface Book without a graphics card and with an Intel Core i5, you might as well get a Surface Pro or a Surface laptop for far less money. That entry level model shouldn't exist, in my opinion. I think the only reason it exists is because it keeps that starting price lower, which looks good in a headline.
Right.
But otherwise, like, you should absolutely spring for the $2,000 one, which is the Intel Core i7 with, I think it's 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. So yeah, do not get that i5 model. It's a waste of money.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird selling point for that one, but for someone who really wants a device, it doesn't need hardcore
Yeah.
graphics, it's probably going to be okay.
A few people asking, can consumers buy the Quadro options, or are they just for enterprise only? Officially, they're for the enterprise markets, but consumers can go to MicrosoftStore.com and go to the business store and buy them yourself if you want. They are a little bit more, especially for the Quadro. You'll be paying quite a bit more for those, but they come with Windows 10 Pro instead of Windows 10 Home, so you're paying $100 more for the license for that. Plus, I think you get some additional warranty options. I'm not too sure on the exact details around that.
Yeah, that's a business users get longer support on their devices and basically like a higher tier of support because it's business. It also ships with Windows 10 Pro versus Windows 10 Home. So you get all that.
It also doesn't come in a retail box. If you do order the commercial
Yes.
options, it comes in a grey box. There's no like fancy packaging. So keep that in mind if you are a big fan of unboxings.
So yeah, Surface Book 3 goes on sale May 21st. It should be in US, Canada at first, and then
Yeah.
fall in the rest of the Surface markets in the weeks after. Um, it's one of those devices. I just been firing up my Surface Book 2 15-inch in preparation, doing some benchmarks again for this new one to review it. And it's funny because, I fall back in love in using a Surface Book 3, especially the 15-inch. It is a massive device, but it's a very satisfying device to use because of the keyboard, the display, the audio, and
Yeah.
it's just there still is nothing on the market that looks like it or behaves like it. And I've said this before, like I said with the XPS line, like even when Dell wasn't refreshing the XPS design, and everybody was going, it's getting old and long in the tooth and all that. I was like, but it was still so ahead of its time that in like 2018 to 19, the XPS 13 still looked like a futuristic laptop. And I feel like that way with the Surface Book. That's not saying there can't be improvements or there shouldn't be improvements, because I think we've talked about this a lot, how what we like to see in a new version. And so, Surface Book 4, maybe. And it's the same thing goes with Surface Pro 8, right? We're expecting, the rumor is that that's going to have a major sort of revision, redesign. But that's how it rolls. So I don't know. I'm excited to get it. I should be getting one in soon. And of course, we'll be reviewing it. And for you guys listening to this podcast right now, live and all that, you can ask questions during the podcast. But there's a lot of people here watching today, so we're probably going to do a Q&A at the end of this. But we'll try to answer some as we're going through if it's pertinent and relevant. So
also probably worth mentioning, I don't know if it's the case in all markets, but at least in the UK, if you pre-order the Book 3, you also get a Surface Pen for free. It's not the slim pen; it's the sort of old school standard Surface Pen, but it is free. It's usually $100 or £100. So if you do pre-order, you get that for free, which is quite nice.
Yep. Someone's asking, did Microsoft design the Go, or did they outsource it like the Go One?
Oh, I think the Go One was. I think they gave it to Intel to design. I think it's an Intel designed product. I don't know about the Go 2 though.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Intel does do that a lot. The new, if you guys haven't seen my book, the Samsung Galaxy Book Flex review went up on Monday. That's, from what I understand, pretty much an Intel design too, which explains a lot. But it's a really good laptop. Go check out that review if you are interested in a 15-inch convertible that's not as big or as expensive or as powerful as the Surface Book. That's probably going to be your best bet. It's a really, really nice laptop. One that I remember seeing it at CES. It's like, okay, it's blue, whatever. And then I got it, started using it, and Samsung did a lot of creative stuff with that. We'll talk about that more on Friday, though. But so that is Surface Book. Let's go to Surface headphones. You want to talk about those? And while you're doing that, I'll fetch them.
Sure. So the Surface headphones 2, they were sort of rumored. They're confirmed now. Not a huge update over the original ones. They do have improved noise cancelling. They've been tuned specifically for like the office environment rather than on an airplane and stuff, although they still work on an airplane as you would expect. Microsoft says that specifically they've tuned the noise cancelling for office environments, so it tunes out typing and people talking in the background and stuff. So if you're trying to work, you can get on with that without being distracted and stuff. As Dan just sort of demoed there, it now has 180 degrees of turn, which is a weird thing that the original Surface headphones don't do. If you're wearing them and you put them around your neck, you can't actually close them properly. They sit that way for some reason. But the Surface headphones 2 can now be sat 180 degrees so that the soft part is sitting on your collarbone, which is a much nicer design choice. They also have is it ATPX or APTX support?
APTX
support and Bluetooth 5.0 support. So that's good if you have a Bluetooth 5.0 enabled device. That should just allow for, I think, is it higher quality streaming or at least a more reliable connection when listening to music? A little bit of both. Yeah.
Both. Yep.
But that's basically it. The design is more or less the same, other than the new black option. And to me, the biggest news is that they come in much cheaper. So they're not $350 now. They start at $250, which I think is much more reasonable for a pair of Surface headphones.
By the way, you can't hear my cat meowing?
I can a little bit, yeah. She's
tricked
the algorithm.
She's outside my door right now. She wants to come in here really badly. So that I don't know if we made a big enough deal about that price drop, partly because the existing ones, the Surface Headphones 1, already dropped to $250 and been that price for a little while. So it basically became a permanent sale price. But Yeah, the black ones, Bluetooth 5, aptX support. It does get the new features that come into Surface Earbuds too, and I believe the Surface Earbuds one will get that as well. But yeah, they rotate around now, the as 180 degrees, as Zach pointed out. And this black color is just totally killer. Like I think this looks just really, really nice. A lot more discreet here. I'll put them on to model them. This it's the first time I'm putting them on, actually. I've had these for since yesterday, but I've been so busy with other stuff that I haven't been able to put them on. But they look just like normal, sort of over-the-ear headphones, right? They're still bigger than everything else out there, but um, they, they're not bigger than any other headphones, really, compared to. I'll show you some more here, but I have another pair of headphones which I can't talk about from a different company. Um, Although here the QC35s, so it's kind of the same size. The QC is still fold up, which is really nice, and these don't do that, but that rotating at least helps. Um, and you do get this really, really nice black case, which looks so cool. And you get, of course, the wires in here and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about trying these out. Big fan of them. I'm curious about if the quality difference is going to be, significantly better or
Yeah.
not. But
So they're available for pre-order now. They will start shipping in the US and Canada on May 12, and other regions in the weeks following. I assume they'll eventually roll out to all the same markets that Headphones 1 are currently available in, and probably up to the 24 markets that the earbuds will be launching in as well. Are they fingerprinty, Dan, the black model?
um,
Because I know matte black can usually show fingerprints.
it's a good point. My initial impressions is no. These
That's
are
good.
pretty. Yeah, they're really not showing anything. So
That's really good.
yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm. Oh, my headphones just fell off there. I think if you've got the headphones 1, I don't think it's worth updating to the headphones 2. I don't think there's enough new here to warrant the change. The form factor is identical. I'm pretty sure the listening experience isn't going to be too different from the first generation. And for those of you who did pay the original price of $350 for these, I think you should get your money's worth and can hang on to these for at least one more generation. I would wait until they at least make it so you can fold them, so they take up less room, because they still take up a lot of room in a bag, which I think is their biggest downfall.
If they, yeah, I don't know if they will make that happen, but
No.
we'll see. Like I said, the new Bose don't fold, which
Oh,
is
they don't?
interesting.
Oh, interesting.
No, no, yeah, the real high end Bose, I forgot what they're called, but they're and they seem super fragile too. Like they're like a twig. They're light. Um, yeah, as I tell people, my thoughts on upgrading for this is simple. Like if you use Surface headphones every day, and some people do, right? I mean, if they put them on in the morning, they use them hours a day, and it's like putting a watch on. If you're that person and you like the black, I'd say it's actually probably worth an upgrade.
Yeah.
If you're like me, I only occasionally use over-the-ear headphones, usually when I travel, which we're not doing anymore. Uh, then it's probably not worth the upgrade. But yeah, I'll have to hear the audio difference and all this kind of stuff. So I'll be giving a quick review that hopefully I'll see maybe next week. I got a lot on my table next days. So.
A few good questions here. Any word on the Surface Audio app? For those who don't know, the Surface Headphones 2, the Surface Earbuds, and the original Surface headphones will soon be configurable via a new Surface Audio app for Android and iOS. This is the sort of app you can download can change the EQ settings and set up your assistant and whatnot. Because with the Surface headphones and whatnot, you can set up either Cortana or the Google Assistant or Siri as your preferred default assistant. So when you tap and hold and start talking, any assistant of your choice will pop up and start answering your questions and whatnot. That will likely be launching on May 12 when the headphones start to ship. That's also the app you'll use to do firmware updates and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, you won't be using the Cortana app anymore. That app's sort of being deprecated. You can do all the settings within this new audio app. But yeah, we haven't seen it yet. We just know it's coming, and I assume it'll be out on May 12.
Yeah, and someone asked about battery life. It's a good point. 20 hours of battery life. So they improved the audio. I don't know if they made the battery bigger. My guess is probably not, because I think they weigh the same. But I think that's because of the Bluetooth 5 and aptX, which I'm told the Bluetooth 5 does greatly improve battery life on these devices. So my hunch is that is what's doing it, which is kind of nice. But yeah, 20 hours, which is nice. The previous were rated at 15 hours. It was more like 12 to 14. I made a joke about how I was flying to China a couple times last year, and it was a 16-hour flight, and technically the headphones couldn't last that long, but now they should. I'll try to wear them for 20 hours and see what happens.
Well,
Um,
my ears get tired after noise cancelling for too long. I have to sort of take a break because my ears feel like too much pressure. Like, ugh, gotta stop.
yep, definitely. But yeah, the black Surface headphones, yeah, a little bit more excited than I thought I'd be getting those. Like those look really, really great. Nice to see. And they should, and no, they didn't remove Cortana. Cortana is there.
Yeah.
Or the Hey Cortana. No, it's all still there. But you can use it with any service you want. Like whatever is the default on your phone, it will use that. Um, so kind of cool stuff.
A question I don't think we know the answer to: are they compatible with the Xbox yet? I would assume no, but maybe they are. Maybe they've changed something so that now when you plug it into the controller, it actually works. Dan will have to test that and get
Yeah,
back to
that'll
us.
be for the review. I'll
Yeah,
remember to give that a shot.
cool.
Um, do they are there some different material used? Oh, that just disappeared quickly. I don't know where that went. Oh well. Um, yeah, so that's that. Speaking of, I guess we'll segue right to the Surface Earbuds. Since I'm wearing those and we're talking about headphones. So obviously, if you're watching this live in the video, you can see I'm wearing the Surface Earbuds. I've been pretty excited about these. Actually, this is kind of the most exciting of all the stuff, just because they're kind of really new and different. Um, and I was wearing them last night for a few hours, listening with music. Here's the little case that they come in, which is really everything about the packaging on this is very delightful. I'm gonna say it's a nice little. It's got the little. I know a lot of people care about how it
Yeah, we can't
sounds
hear
when it.
that, Dan. RTX is on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry. I'll just say it closes pretty well. Makes a nice little snap. It's nice little case. The packaging was just really delightful. When you open it up, it says I put it on my Instagram. It says like I don't know, something about ears and fingerprints or something like that. It's a nice little message. It's just presented so nicely. And when you pick it up, there's another message underneath it, basically telling you how to, to size it for yourself. So you do get multiple ear tips. I'll take one out to show you guys. That's what it looks like. It's really nice size. You get the little speaker part there, and you can replace these ear tips. They have different size ones depending on your ear. I'm using the default ones that came out of the box. They're just kind of perfect. There's multiple microphones on it, so you can use for voice calls, which I haven't tried yet. I'm using our studio mic, obviously, for this podcast because it's going to be better quality. My first impressions, let's put aside the talk of how they look. I find this like that's super subjective, but in terms of comfort, these are awesome. And I kind of said this when I first tried them on back in November, but like when you put these in your ear, you really kind of barely notice they're there. You almost forget that they're there. You do kind of feel them, not because of the weight, but just because of like you can feel it touching your ear. And they feel like they just might fall out, but they never do. They're in there, like they kind of grip pretty well. And I haven't had any sore spots or anything. They're just, I get, these are meant for you're supposed to put them on and wear them for like 8 hours. Like that is literally kind of the point of them. And so like, for all day at the office, going to work, and just I'm supposed to be able to just wear them so I could take a phone call, listen to my music, use my computer if I was on a meeting, and you just leave them in, and you don't feel like you need to take them out. And because of their design, they're not an ear canal, and they don't have noise canceling. The world to me just sounds normal. Like I can function without getting hit by a car or have someone yelling at me trying to get my attention, or I can still just hear ambient noise in the background. And that's the point of these. And I realize some people may hear that as like, I don't want that in my headphones. I want to shut out the world. Like, all right, then these are definitely not for you, right? But that is what Microsoft's reason for creating these is basically these are supposed to be okay to wear at work for 8 hours and not have to take them off and recharge them or take them off because someone's talking to you. You can just put them in and leave them in. And that's a really interesting use case, I think. And I like them a lot so far. The audio quality, I haven't tried a lot of these earbuds, to be honest. We have a pair of AirPods here. I've never used them, but I'll try them. And I'll probably pick up the new Google ones just to sort of compare and contrast. But, my first impression of audio, it's really good. Now, I don't have the audio configuring apps. I can't control the equalizer and all that kind of, which I presume is part of the new audio app for these. But the audio is good. I like it. Like I was the stereo separation, all this is good. When you first put them in and pair them, it's very much like sounds like HoloLens, where it has this really ambient sort of noise that that's floating in space, and a voice comes on and it walks you through the process.
Is it
It's
is it
very
still Cortana's voice, or is it just a sort of generic AI now?
no, it's kind of like a generic AI,
Interesting.
but it was very natural and it was very peaceful. It was just like, I don't know, it was very chill. Like I said, delightful. I felt like I was putting on kind of like future headphones. And because the separation of the audio for this like background ambient stuff was just very had presence. It was like a THX thing almost. And it was just, I don't know, it was just great. Um, but I really like these. And now in terms of looks, well, I mean, you guys will judge. Like I've said already, AirPods are the goofiest things I've ever seen, but people like them because they deliver. They deliver on that experience. But like, you're never going to convince me that those look better than this. I actually think these look kind of cool, and I think you're going to get used to it because I'm pretty much wearing them every week on the podcast. Um, but I don't know, they kind of look like what you would imagine in the future. Now,
Yeah.
and regarding the size, so let's bring that up. A lot of people are like, oh, they're too big. But the reason is these are touch sensitive. These are all for gestures. I'm supposed to be able to touch them to on the left side. If you go forward, it skips a track. If you go backwards, goes back to the track. On the right side, if you swipe up, it goes volume up. If swipe down, it's volume down. I think on either side, if you tap, it'll pause
Hmm.
or play whatever it is. If you press and hold, it launches your smart assistant, whatever that is, on whatever device you're using it with. And I think there's also with Android, there's going to be a triple tap, which will launch and start Spotify, which
Oh,
is
that's
kind of wild.
nice.
Yeah. Plus, these work with Office and specifically PowerPoint, where you can like switch slides, all that. So it has to have enough room so when you can do those gestures. And I'll be honest, like if these were any smaller, it would be kind of hard because it's not a huge target. Like you can't, you're not looking in the mirror constantly, right? You have to be able to reach up and do this and hit that little target without seeing it. And so I think there's a very ergonomic reason why they're kind of this size, not bigger, not smaller. Um, Although reasoning may not convince you, and that's fine. I'm just telling you why it is the way it is. But the gestures work pretty well. I mean, it's pretty convenient just to keep your phone in your pocket and volume up, volume down. I mean, it's one of the things that's nice about the Surface headphones is the dials, right? It's the ergonomics. And they really made this like a really neat experience where you don't need to pull out your phone or your device to sort of control things. So,
I think for me the biggest downside to these earbuds is that the case doesn't have wireless charging. I think that's a
right.
huge miss compared because the AirPods have it, the Galaxy Buds have it, and I'm sure most others. Oh, the Google Pixel Buds that just came out have it as well. Microsoft's are the only one that don't have wireless charging, and I think that's a real shame because I think for something this small, it's more convenient, and especially since the battery is so tiny and it doesn't take long. Just plop it on a wireless charger for
Yeah.
15 minutes, and you're pretty much good to go. The inconvenience of having to pull out a cable and find align it and plug it in. I'm making it sound like such a chore, but you get the idea. It's less of a convenience having to use a cable, which is a real shame in my opinion.
Yeah, let's talk about that briefly. So on the back is a Type C charger. Hey, it's Type C at least. So
Could you imagine if it was micro
it's
USB?
micro. Oh God. Doesn't surprise. Well, whatever. It's Type C, so that's really good. So battery life, that's the selling point here. They're supposed to last 8 hours on a charge, which is 3 hours more than the Surface. Sorry, the Google earbuds or Google Buds that just came out. So 8 hours, and then you're supposed to get three charges out of this. Well, no, sorry, two more charges out of this. So basically, when you fully charge this with the headphones in there, you're going to get 24 hours of playback, which is actually
Not bad.
pretty awesome. Again, they could have skimped on battery, made them smaller, all this kind of stuff, but they wanted you to get 8 hours, a full working day out of them. And that's more than some of the other earbuds out there. They are IPX4 rated too, which means, you can get these wet. You don't want to go swimming with them, but if you're in the rain or something like that, it's totally fine. Someone's asking, if I bop my head? I mean, I can move my head. They're not going to fall out. Right? They definitely do not fall out. Like these things are, it's because of two reasons. One, the way that they're designed, the way that they sort of latch into
They
your
sort of
ear.
they hook in slightly, don't they?
Yeah. And so they just kind of like hook in at the right spots, but they're also because they're so light.
Mm.
So it's a combo of those two things because they're so light. And that also helps because I don't feel them in my ears. Like I really do not notice them. But you have that and the way they kind of grip, they don't shake, they don't budge, they don't do anything. They just stay in place. They did a really good job on the ergonomics of this. And it's just like on that reason alone, like I don't know how this, Google ones are. I haven't really tried AirPods. I'm just telling you, as someone who's just getting into these for the first time, like these feel awesome. Like I'm really, really impressed with them. And the audio I think is really good too. Now, that's again relative. I haven't tried everybody else's, so I don't know. They could be blown away. But from what I gathered so far, it's like, all right, this is good. I like this. Like I'm gonna use these. Like, and I'll be using them on the podcast every week. So oh, and for people wondering about the color, this is Glacier White. And I don't know, unofficially, I'm not supposed to, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this. We know about the other color, right? There's a dark gray. I'm shocked that they didn't launch that here. I
Yeah,
don't know
that
why
is weird.
did they run out of like gray
Color?
ink?
Yeah.
But that's still coming. So if you really want the darker version, which I think a lot of people actually may want. So the good thing with having the white ones in, because it does draw a little bit more attention to my head, but that's for some people that's the point. Like if you came up to me, I might have my
Oh,
music
there's a
on.
Microsoft fanboy. I can see him.
Yeah, there's that too. But there's sort of like a signaling, kind of thing. But supposedly the darker ones are still coming as well. So
Yeah,
the
and I
white
think
one,
you're right. The darker ones do sort of hide better, especially if you have dark hair. It's not as
yeah,
noticeable. But yeah, the white ones are available now, which because Microsoft when they delayed the earbuds, because remember these were delayed. They were supposed to come out at the end of last year,
yeah.
and they said the white ones would launch first, but then we'd be launching the grey ones in the spring of 2020. But then when the delay happened, Microsoft said we'll be launching both colors in the spring. But both colors aren't here. We've only got the glacier white ones, and the grey ones are still nowhere to be found. Yeah, it is weird. I guess maybe they're just testing the waters to see how well these white ones do, and if they sell enough, then they'll be like, oh, okay, we've got a hit on our hands. Let's do more color options. I think that's also why the Pro X was only available in black, right? They didn't do a platinum version because they weren't too sure how many they were going to sell, and so they wanted to limit stock and only did one color.
Some questions people are asking, how are the microphones on these? I haven't tried them yet. I literally had these since last night, so I haven't had a chance to give that a shot. When I do the review, I'll make sure I'll sample that. Someone's asking multi-device pairing. Yes, that's a big thing with Microsoft. These do support multi-device pairing. In fact, I haven't paired with my phone and I haven't paired with my PC. Although I did have issues with Skype and interference, so I turned off the Bluetooth of my phone. But these do work with multi-devices. I think it's to two, but I'll try to connect up to my iPhone a bit later too. But yeah, so the idea here is, I mean, most people have one phone and one PC that they're going to use pretty frequently. But yeah, the idea here is you go to work, you have your work computer, these are paired up to it. You do your Teams meeting, your Skype call. And then when you go to lunch, you take your phone with you and you're still paired to that. There's no switching, it just seamlessly jumps back and forth. And you support aptX as well. So it should be all good stuff.
How is the case compared to the AirPods case? Because a lot of people love the AirPods case because it's so satisfying to open and close. Is the earbuds case on a similar level to that, or is it cheaper feeling? Do you remember? Do you have the AirPods nearby to test?
I don't have. I mean, I tried them kind of before the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, it's a bigger case, right?
Right.
So one of the I'll give Apple the credit here. One of the cool things about AirPods is it's a small, tiny case that fits into that little coin pocket
Mm-hmm.
into your pants, and these definitely don't. These are going to be a little bit larger. Actually, you know what? Technically, I have stretchy jeans. They do fit into the coin pocket, but the point is still that it's a larger thing. But it's got a really nice snap to it. The lid is very thin, but it feels very quality. There's little magnets that pull in the headphones. There's a little LED you can kind of see there, and it does this cool breathing thing, especially when you're charging it, which is nice. On the bottom, there's a little button for you hold it to pair. And I did this with pairing with this computer, which means I just had to hold it for 5 seconds. And then I didn't have to go into the Bluetooth settings of my computer. A little notification popped up. It's like, hey, there's something there that's Bluetooth. You want to connect to it? And you hit yes. So it's like very fast. Android does this as well. So it's all good stuff. But and they launched them worldwide. So these are available Glacier Whites worldwide. I believe it's 24 markets.
Yeah.
Will be online Microsoft stores. So this isn't like US only and
Mm.
Canada or something like that. This is if you want them in whatever Surface country is available, you can get them.
I think
Um,
the biggest change between when they were announced in October and today is that they're $50 cheaper, which
yes.
we sort of expected would happen once the delay was announced. Because when they were announced at $249, everybody sort of collectively went, "That's too expensive," especially for a pair of headphones that don't have active noise cancelling and stuff, or wireless charging. So they've dropped the price $50, so they're now only $199. I say only. That's still considerably expensive for a pair of headphones, but it's not
Yes.
$250. So it's
Yes.
the small victories and all of
It's
that.
$20 more than Google's, but it also I would say gets way better battery life.
Yeah.
And I mean there's trade-offs, right? They're not cheap, let's say that, but I believe the 199 price point makes more sense, especially because the Surface headphones came in 250. Someone's asking they don't isolate exterior noise at all, right? Yeah, 'cause these are the opposite of that actually. They're meant to let in ambient noise. So if you're working in an office and Jane or Bob comes up to you, you're going to hear them
Yeah,
perfectly.
I think a good comparison is just the normal AirPods. If you've tried out the normal AirPods, or even just the wired
Yes.
AirPods, they're just like that. They just sit in your ear. That they don't try to cancel noise in the outside. If you're listening to your music loud enough, you can probably cancel out most noise, but there's no active cancellation. Or what's the other one? There's active noise,
Passive.
passive. There's no passive noise
Yeah.
cancelling either. It's just you're playing your music. If it's loud enough, you probably won't be able to hear most things, but you can hear if someone's like trying to shout your name, you will be able to hear it.
Someone's asking a good question. Can you use just one at a time? I don't know. We're going to find out. And if I get disconnected, can't hear you guys. We'll see what happens. I'm pulling out the left
All
one.
right, and I'm still talking, so Dan can hear if my voice is working. Are you hearing it?
I'm hearing you.
Wow, look at that.
So yes, you can use just one at a time and it'll stay connected. That's pretty nice actually, because I would actually normally probably just use this with one at a time on the podcast. But that's a good point too, because I've last week on the podcast I mentioned about how one reason I don't use two earphones, especially the earbud ones, the wired ones I always ran that one in my back. The reason I would do that is because it would block out everything, and it was weird because then I couldn't really hear my voice, and that's super important when you're talking with headphones on. If you can hear your own voice, you don't talk loud. You know, this can modulate, right? Um, and so that's why I don't wear over the ear headphones while doing this podcast on both ears, or why I don't even wear the buds. With these, I can leave both in, and I totally feel fine. I actually kind of like hearing. It's actually better. I can actually hear Zach in stereo,
Mm.
and sounds more natural now. But I also don't feel weird. I can hear my voice, and that's super important for like what we're doing right now. So again, and you think about that. If you're using this for like Microsoft Teams or your Zoom meeting or Skype calls, these are awesome for that function. That's kind of what Microsoft was aiming for. It'd be weird if these didn't do that and made using them on a Teams call strange, right? So, but I like them. I like them a lot, and that's probably a heads up of what I'm going to think about them for my review. I think they're priced high, but they're not ridiculous by comparison. But if you're the little case is so cool. Like it's just neat to see. I don't know. I'm pretty much a big fan of this stuff. So
That's good.
yeah. If you guys have more questions on them, save them for the end of the podcast, and we'll try to answer those. There's a lot of people watching us today. We got 915 on YouTube,
Look at that.
which is that's
People
a
like
record.
Surface.
Yes, well, it's definitely a good Surface day. We were up all night covering all this, and my stuff didn't show up to like 8 p.m. last night, so uh, I had a very long night. Speaking of, let's talk about the big small guy.
My favorite
Uh,
one of the bunch.
Surface Go 2. So, yeah, here it is. It looks a lot like Surface Go 1, except for the display bezels. This is the new darker platinum keyboard cover, I believe. It's you can see it there. They've been going with the darker platinum, which is nice. Um, and you can see it already popped on there. That's because it has better instant on now. So I haven't used this probably for the last probably 80 minutes or so. So but it didn't, like, if you notice, it didn't go to hibernate. It didn't go into have to wake up and all that stuff. I just opened the keyboard and boom, it just popped on, went to Windows Hello. So this version costs $729. This is the high end.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the high end Mac you can get. So that's a Core M3, that's LTE, 128 gigs of storage, and 8 gigs of RAM. Um, but it's really nice. It's pretty awesome. It goes obviously starts at $399 if you want that, but that's gonna be with the Pentium processor, and of course no LTE. The Pentium is newer. There was a 4515Y, now it's a 4425Y. I believe it's 100 hertz difference. It's like it's not going to perform that much better. They did make the SSD faster though, so that's kind of nice. And I don't know about the RAM and stuff like that. The big thing here though is going to be, what Zach was right on reporting a few weeks ago, which was the bezels are thinner. So
it's
thinner
crazy.
bezels.
It's crazy how much more modern the Surface Go 2 looks. Just by the
Yes.
0.5 inches of larger screen, it's such a difference. When Dan was holding up there, it just looks better in so many ways.
Yep. Yeah, I would describe it as it's normal looking now. um, and that's, I say that because you have devices like Dell's XPS 13 series and even HP's now doing thin bezels, and Lenovo's getting in on it. Of course, Huawei did it. So we're getting used to this culture of like super thin bezels, but there's like that counter argument to be made on a tablet-like device, especially one that adults are supposed to use, but also kids is supposed to use, and how thin you should go. Now, I've heard some people say they're not thin enough. I disagree with that. I get it though. Like I get why you want this idea of like a disappearing display and all that. I still think for a tablet device, you get into some usability things. But there's something else that people keep forgetting about, which is that bottom bezel. That bottom bezel, if this was just a tablet, I could see doing that. But you have to have the keyboard with this, right? That's really what makes the Surface Go cool. And so when you open the keyboard, you see how it attaches to the bottom bezel there. Well, guess what? It goes right to the bottom of the display now. So if they made the bezels any thinner, they would have to make this connector thinner, and they really can't. It's not big. Or they would have to make 3 of the bezels thinner and then have the bottom bezel thicker. And
that would look
that
stupid.
that would look okay if you just kept it like this, but as soon as you folded this back or you took away the keyboard, it'll look really goofy, right? Everybody would be like, why does it look so stupid? So, because if you notice, the bezels are all symmetrical. So in order to keep everything perfectly symmetrical, that's what it is. They can't just make the sides thinner because that then screws up the aspect ratio and screen resolution. So they would have to basically think of a way to completely redesign the device to make that happen. And maybe that will, right? I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible to solve because the Pro X does this, right? The Pro X has really thin side bezels, which some people don't like in handling. But it has super thin side bezels. But the Pro X was designed completely new to kind of be like that. And it was okay to be a little bit bigger. This is supposed to be kind of compact and there's size restrictions. Because if you made it a little bit, yeah, because then you have to, I don't know. There's a lot, you know what I'm saying? As soon as you change the sides and make them thinner, but you want to keep that aspect, it throws everything else off. There's a lot of math involved. But yeah, so that's the display bezel. I think it looks a lot better. It's still a small device. Don't get me wrong. I'm in my 40s and using a 10-inch or 10.5-inch display. It's at nighttime, it's a little frustrating. It's a very good display though. And I know last week went off about displays being, not, Microsoft kind of lagging behind. I think for the price point though, this is an amazing display. It's still more glossy than I would like. They still need to do that with the anti-reflective. That would really make this perfect. But this is a very color accurate display. It's 99% sRGB. I think it was 78% Adobe. I got the numbers. I already benched the screen calibration this morning. It hits almost 400 nits of brightness. And on this little 10-inch device, I mean, it's a bright screen, like considering. And I bring that up because this is $399, right? If you get the $399 model, you're getting a really, really good display for $399. Like usually when you go down in price on displays and computers, like the angles of what you can see, the display go down. Like the quality just is just not there. The color is not as vibrant. The contrast is not as good. The brightness is always like 300 nits instead of like 400. But they're not doing any of that. This is a basically a Surface Pro's display, just smaller. It does the full inking, of course. Like all of that is expensive to do. And, it's the first thing you're going to see when you use this device is the display. It's a really, really good display. I really enjoy it. Having that extra half inch really makes a difference. Instant-on helps. The SSD is slightly faster. We'll talk about that Core M3. The Core M3, it's an old chip, right? It's a M8100Y. It came out, I think, like 2 years ago. It's not new. But Microsoft here is limited to what Intel offers. And that's what this comes down to. It's not ideal, but that's what Intel has. Now that chip, I know it's like, oh, it's a Core M3 or it's a Y series. It should be cheap. It's not. Intel doesn't charge. Intel charges its retail price listing for that chip is $120 more than the Pentium. And that's why Microsoft didn't just use this chip last time around. It's expensive and it drives up the cost. Now they're not, I don't know if it's $120 difference. I didn't compare. I don't think it is. So someone's eating some cost there. But it's a more expensive chip. Intel basically charges the same amount for that chip as they do like a Core i3 typical one. Let's talk about the performance and everything. It's really, this gets, people are going to ask about battery life. I don't know. It's had it only less than 24 hours. I'm going to say battery life is going to be complicated. So hear me out. A Pentium chip, all right, uses 6 watts of power. This one uses 5 watts of power, which is weird, right? It's a more powerful chip, uses 5 watts TDP. The Pentium, though, runs at 1.7 gigahertz. This one, though, can drop down to 1.1 gigahertz. So it can actually run slower when not in use. You combine that with the 5 watts versus 6 watts, you can get more battery potentially. The Pentium, though, stays at 1.7 gigahertz. That's why it's a Pentium, by the way. It doesn't turbo. It doesn't go higher than that. This one, the M3, can go up to 3.4 gigahertz, I believe it is, which is a lot faster. And that's why you see such a difference in the performance in the benchmarks, because this thing can turbo. So this thing can turbo up to 3.4 gigahertz and drop down to 1.1 gigahertz and still do it using slightly less power. So depending on how you use it, though, if you're like always hitting that 3 gigahertz range, right, you could potentially maybe use more power. I don't know yet. This is what I'm saying. It's not a one-to-one thing for battery life. They're quoting Microsoft around 10 hours of battery life, which is, it's an improvement. It does have physically a larger battery in it. So you should get more power out of this. It lasts longer. What that means in real world usage, I don't know. If I get 7 hours out of it, I'd be actually pretty okay with that.
I said in my article when writing up the announcement that I think the Core M3 option with 8 gigs of RAM and the faster 128 gig or even 256 gig SSD if you get the commercial option, I think this pushes the Surface Go from being more or less recommended as a PC companion to something normal people can use as their only PC. The Intel Core M3 option, although it's not a high-end chip by any means, it's what did Microsoft say? 64% faster than the Pentium 4415Y in the original Surface Go. But it's for general use, the M3 is better. You can get by doing pretty much all office related work in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever, browsing the web. You can have loads of tabs open. Well, a few tabs open. Let's not go crazy. We've only got 8 gigs of RAM, remember? But it should be capable for most of those tasks. This is a PC that I think people could use as their only device if they had no other choice. And I think a lot of people don't have that choice, right? If they've got $600 to spend or $650 to spend on a computer, the Surface Go, the M3 option, I think is a good choice in my opinion. This as long as the battery life holds up, we'll obviously do the testing. If you can get 7 hours out of this thing, I think this is a great option for people who are in that budget. The 399 option, I just want to talk about as well quickly. It is, as Dan mentioned, is the Pentium. But when with the Surface Go, the original Surface Go, although the performance wasn't great, it wasn't bad either. I loved my original Surface Go. I thought it was great for web browsing and email and writing in Word and stuff. Obviously, you're not supposed to do too heavy work tasks with it. But but I think the 4425Y and the Go, the 399 Go, I think it's fine. I think it's good enough. The 4 gigs of RAM, we did a test with the original Surface Go as well, and that's more or less fine as well, as long as you limit yourself and you're running a few apps at a time at most. I do recommend sort of updating to the 8 gig one. The problem is Microsoft is selling both 8 gig to 128 gig storage options in the Pentium and M3 options. You can get it with the Pentium, which is I think 450 or something around there, and then the M3 one is 550 or around there. So it's $100 difference between the Pentium and the M3. At that point, I think you should push for the M3. It's only $100 difference. Although saying that is a keyboard, right? The $100 difference is either you get the Pentium with a keyboard or you get just the Go 2 on its own without the keyboard. These are the options that users are going to have to sort of decide on now when they are buying the Surface Go 2. Do they want more power for $100 more, but then have to spend the extra $100 on the keyboard, or do they want to save $100 and put that $100 towards the type cover? Those are the options people have now.
Yeah, let's it's actually okay. Yeah, let's go over the prices and SKUs because you and I got to refresh myself here. So starting price $399. That's the Intel Pentium Gold, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage. Right. That's okay for your kid.
Yes. And I think that's the point, right?
Yeah, and for education markets, that's probably going to be fine, right? So I think that's all right. And to be honest, I have basically that similar device too. I did a video last year or 2 years ago. Go watch on YouTube where I fool people to showing how that device can actually still game doing 2D gaming, and it's totally fine actually. It's a lot better than people think, but it's not the fastest, right? And then so that's $399. So for $150 more, you go up to the still Pentium Gold, but now you get 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs, but SSD. The previous one was 64 gigs storage with eMMC, which is pretty slow. And so that $150 difference does give you a pretty big performance jump. But you really want to get the good stuff, $630. So that's now $550 versus $630. So it's $80 more. So that's not bad. So $80 more is just a processor swap. You're going to go from the Pentium Gold to the Core M3. Still 8 gigs of RAM, still 120 gig SSD. So $80 difference. Like I said, the chip Intel charges as on its site retail is $120 difference. So someone's, supposedly, I mean, those numbers technically are arbitrarily a little bit, but someone's eating some cost there, right? But $80 difference.
You should push for the M3 at that point, I think.
Yeah, like if you have the $80 and can swing it, absolutely go for the M3. You'll be way, way more happy. Like it's a big difference. I have the benchmarks posted up. It's a big difference in performance, and not just like running an app. I'm just talking about everyday experience and using it. It's going to be much better. And so that's $630. Plus, you still need the keyboard. If you're going from the regular Go, though, the old keyboards work. There's nothing new with a keyboard except the colors. So don't worry.
And also the magnet. If you want to have the magnet work, you have to get the new type cover. The old type covers don't have the magnet in the type cover.
Yep. So that's another small change. They do have little magnets now in the bottom, so it stays closed, which is nice. It's not super strong, but it's enough that it keeps it from flopping, which is a really nice thing it did. So $630, and then if you want to go for another $100, you get all that plus LTE. Is that worth it? It is weird having LTE such a tiny device, but it's so cool. Like this is a device that, like, when I go out for the weekends, even if I go hiking, I would take this with me because I can use this like anywhere. I mean, I would take the Pro X too, but it's most people aren't making like, should I take my Pro X or my Go with LTE decision? I have to make that decision, but it's cool because it's so portable. You just throw this in the car with you, and because they didn't change the exterior chassis, all the stuff that I reviewed in the last 2 years for this device, including like cases and covers. There's a UAG. They make a lot of covers for this thing, the rugged cases. They all work. And if you bought a Kensington dock, which you probably didn't because it's expensive, but that Kensington dock works with this. And that's why Microsoft doesn't change up the design chassis every year,
I think what's quite interesting about this Surface Go 2 is the commercial SKUs are quite interesting. So for the commercial side of thing, you can get the Intel Pentium Gold with 4 gigs and 64 gigs of eMMC storage for 450. And the reason that's more than 399 is because this version comes with Windows 10 Pro. Because it's the commercial version that all the commercial products come with Windows 10 Pro. But then the jump up from that is only $499, but you get the Core M3 model in it. So that's a huge boost in performance there. But you also don't get the 8 gigs of RAM or the 128 gig SSD. It remains at 4 gigs of RAM with 64 gigs of eMMC storage. So that's a weird SKU to me, because the processor is much better, but you're now bottlenecked by the RAM and the storage. So is that one worth, how much are you saving there? You're saving what, $150 over the commercial, the consumer one with 8 gigs and 128 gigs SSD? That's a lot. That's a big saving.
I hear this a lot of times. Like a lot of people in our audience too, a little bit more, I would say, pro users, or at least you're familiar with RAM and all this kind of stuff. And so for those people, anything less than 8 gigs they'll say it's literally impossible to use.
Which is not true.
I've used 4 gigabyte devices. I've actually been fine with that. I've run 4 gig ARM devices and I've been fine with it. So I find memory management in Windows 10 is actually really good to do this. You don't get the same slowdowns as you used to do in the old versions of Windows. Obviously, I think the more you can get in terms of RAM, usually the better. Diminishing returns. After 16 gigs, it doesn't get as much. I'm running 64 gigs right now, but I don't know. Heck, if I've noticed. So it's one of those things. If you can get 8 gigabytes, it'll last you longer. It would be a little bit better, but it's not like night and day difference. Like if you put both in front of me and they have the same processor, it's real. I in a blind test, I think I'd be really struggling to be like, oh, that's the 8 gig and that's the 4. Like it's not like that. It's not that clear. We should go around doing blind tests like that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, if you know your workflow and you know that you only have, you only got Word open and you at most you're doing a few tabs in a web browser, you've got your email client, you've got your Word document, and that's it. You don't really go any further than that when you're in your workflow. I think 4 gigs of RAM is more than enough, because you just don't need the additional RAM. There's not, like Dan said, Windows is really good at the RAM management. So as long as you know your workflow, that's fine. You can sort of measure it and go, right, the 4 gigs is all I need. I don't need any more than that.
I mean, some people just use a web browser, Microsoft Word, and email.
And like 4 gigs is fine for that.
4 gigs. Now, someone's saying here they're a developer and they need 16 gigs. Yeah, sure. I mean, developers like 32 and 64 gigs are on the table all of a sudden, because
and that's why the Book 3 has the new 32 gig options, because that's what their customers are asking for, because developers are sort of drawn to the book and whatnot.
Someone's asking what the X91 controller behind me. Yeah, I have an X91 controller. It's I don't know. Microsoft Store was selling it. It's a neat little old school retro. Yeah, I think I've opened it once, but yeah, it's an old school retro controller. It feels okay. It's kind of nice. Yeah. It's made by. Who makes that? Oh, it's Hyperkin. They also remade the big boy controller, the original Xbox controller, a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So yeah, real quick, finishing off the commercial SKUs. You can max it out with the M3 with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gigabyte SSD with LTE, and that costs $879. So that's comfortable Surface Pro territory at that point.
That's the baller one. You get that, you got to bling it out with gold and be like, yeah, I spent that much on a tiny PC.
Yeah. It should come with like an engraving says, I spent too much money on this. Because that is a lot of money. Like I said, that is comfortable Surface Pro territory at that point. So is that additional to 128 gigs of storage worth it? I think this model's aimed purely at like specific enterprise workflows, right? A very specific work case scenario who needs 256 gigs.
It's orgs who buy them and are going to keep them for a couple of years, know. Yeah. And maybe that one executive who's like, I need a tiny, powerful little computer. Yeah, it's nice. The Surface Go 2, I'm sure Microsoft learned a lot from the first gen, but it's also, like I said, they're kind of limited about what they can do. So let's talk about what we would actually change about this device, right? So obviously, I think there's like 2 things that Zach and I agree on. One, which is it would be awesome to have ARM. ARM seems like a little bit better positioned for this kind of device. There's still issues there, which I acknowledge, and maybe Microsoft just didn't want to deal with those with this because technically, yeah, you can run Photoshop on this if you wanted to, and it'll run. Especially if you get to Core M3, yeah, you can do it. Is it going to be great? It'll be all right. I don't know. Everybody's different about what they accept, but it would be kind of cool. I would like to see them. We talked about that a few podcasts ago. There's a rumor there's going to be like a Surface Go X. I still think that would be a cool idea instead of having the LTE version, or to have the LTE, but have the Surface Go X as like your LTE super mobile version. Then you could change the design, make it really thin, and do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. I'd like to see that. Also, I think, we'll talk about this on the podcast Friday. Windows 10X is now going to be positioned first for single screen devices. And I think everybody's putting all this together, right? The ultimate device would be like this, but even thinner bezels, maybe a little sexier hardware, Windows 10X, latest ARM CPU. I mean, that's the dream, right? And maybe there's hope, right? And I'll let Zach talk about this, but maybe Microsoft will let us put Windows 10X on certain Surface devices, and this could be one of them. I'm sure they're probably testing it internally on such a device, and that could happen, right? So, and I think putting 10X on this, we have to worry because 10X technically would be a beta, and betas aren't optimized. But in theory, the 10X operating system would run smoother, would be faster. You'd have much quicker OS updates and probably better battery life too, because the Win32 stuff would be suspended in the background. And so it would change this device almost instantly, right? It would it's good now, but like it could be so much cooler. So, and I think that's where Microsoft's going. But obviously, a lot of pieces in play here, including Intel's new chipset, which is coming out. Lakefield. Although Lakefield, I don't think is supposed to be super cheap. But I think that's where Microsoft and its partners are all pushing towards. So if you want that this year, probably not going to happen. I wouldn't necessarily buy the Go2s thinking you're going to get 10X on it. It now officially, as in like an upgrade, but maybe as an insider project, but I wouldn't buy it. Buy it for what it can do right now as is. But maybe in 2021, we'll finally get, fall. I could see that, fall 2021, do a Surface Go 3. Even maybe just an Intel chip, but with Windows 10X and all that kind of stuff, it could be pretty wild.
Yeah.
Zach, which one are you getting? I know you're a big Surface Go fan, so obviously you're going to be getting one.
Yeah, I've pre-ordered the M3 model with 8 gigs and 128 gig SSD. Not the LTE model though. Again, it got the additional price got me. I've complained about this before. Why does the LTE one always cost like $100 more? Because I sit there and I'm at the buy page and I'm like, I don't go out enough. I just don't go outside enough to.
It's true. All my arguments, like, at the end of last year, I wrote how the Pro X is my favorite laptop of 2019, and still is. Like, I don't want, but part of that was because I was traveling a lot, and so it was just super useful. Now I haven't left my house in like days, so LTE is not important. That said, for me, I mean, one reason, like, I'm really glad Microsoft sent the LTE version because, like, if you add LTE to any kind of laptop, I'm going to probably use it way more. I just love the idea that like I can leave the house. It's weird knowing that, like, if you leave a house, your computer or laptop instantly just becomes useless. Like, it's just weight you're carrying around until hopefully you can find a Wi-Fi hotspot, or you want to bust out your phone, turn on the menus, and then start, burning your phone's battery up. But this thing now with LTE, oh man, I'm gonna grab this all the time. It's so light and portable, like it's cute, and it's not, compared to the iPad Pro and all this kind of stuff, people are going to compare it to. This is just more. This is a tiny computer. This is an actual tiny laptop.
It's a PC, right?
It's a PC. Oh, and the cameras. We'll talk about the cameras. So they don't really change, but Microsoft's making a big deal about this, and they should. I talked about this last week on the podcast. 2019, even in my reviews, I'd be like, the web camera is okay. It was nothing great. Surface was better. Because Surface cameras are always better. The Surface team is never, they've always put amazing cameras in their devices, even though there was like, people were not necessarily using them as much or was as big of a deal. Now, all of a sudden, we all have to work from home and work teleconferencing. Everybody's using Zoom, to stay in touch with their families, and kids need it for school. Web cameras now matter. Well, they didn't really change the cameras on the go. I'm sure maybe it's slightly updated with the algorithms or something, but You got a 5 megapixel front facing full HD camera, 1080p. Like most laptops, put in perspective, are 720p. And they're tiny, tiny sensors. Been doing, and this is Dell and HP, and they're just responding to what customers are doing. They've been putting these little tiny micro cameras that go into those little tiny bezels. And because people want, thin bezels. So they did it. And then they're like, all right, but there's the camera. You don't want it at the bottom. We put it in the top. It's a tiny little camera. And it kind of sucks. Like it's good enough in a pinch, but it's not good. If you look at the camera quality, it's a step back, right? Well, Microsoft has these just amazing camera. It's 5 megapixel. It looks great in low light. You can actually snap a photo of yourself with this. That's the always funny test I always do with web laptop reviews. Is like you'll see yourself on video and it looks okay. Then you snap a photo and then you bring the photo up. It's like this super pixelated like smartphone from 10 years ago photo. It's just like you couldn't use it. This photo though, you can actually use of yourself. Like, all right, that actually kind of looks like me. And then of course it has the rear facing camera, which is also good. I believe it's 1080p. I forgot I think it's 8 megapixel. And this is actually a really good camera. Even on the Go One, I reviewed it and I took photos outside, and they're like really good photos. So again, for business people, real estate people, students, all that, like you can actually use this to snap a pic, or even like a whiteboard, right? That's kind of what it's supposed to be used. And you use Office Lens or Office to convert it into a document. They also did add dual microphones. So before I had one front-facing mics. Now they're doing what they're called their studio mics. They have two front-facing microphones, noise canceling, and all that. So the whole like teleconferencing experience with this device is supposed to be much better, than anything out there. And even compared to Apple's like MacBooks have terrible web cameras and all this. Like I said, this wasn't that big of a deal last year, but now this is like, even if you go watch the Surface Go 2 Sizzler video that Microsoft put out this morning that shows the Surface, like watch it. It's very conscious of sort of the people working from home thing. They don't overtly state, "Oh, we're in a pandemic," But if you watch how people are kind of keeping their distance and how they're using the device, it's for kind of where we are right now. And you can get all that for $399, and it's kind of a big deal, right? So it's funny because I think we're going to have to see other laptop and tablet manufacturers sort of catch up here. And Microsoft, they still have those thicker than normal bezels, but it's because they can put in a big webcam in there, and you still get the Windows Hello IR thing, which again, that's a pretty premium feature to have in a device. A lot of companies are like, we won't do the IR, we'll do a fingerprint reader, and they do it to save cost, but not Microsoft. Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this device. It's just they did a really nice job with it, but try to get the Core M3 version. If you get the Pentium, get it for your kid. It'll be okay. If you're only going to use it once in a while, the Pentium one's fine. If you're planning on using this like every day, is your couch device, kicking back at night, taking it with you to the coffee shop, get the Core M3. It's like nearly double the performance. It's a big jump. Even the GPU is better. It's an Intel UHD 615. Previous one was Intel HD 615. And it got like a 3,000 point difference when I did Geekbench and stuff like that. So I also have the numbers up for PC Mark. The SSD is also faster. It's not a fast SSD. It's like 1,600 megabits per second. Is it megabytes per second? Megabytes per second. And I think the previous one was 1,300. But it's 300 megabytes per second. It's a big increase. But the write speeds also dramatically went up. I think they almost like doubled or tripled or something like that. So, all that, you put it together, it gives you a really enjoyable experience. So I think they did a nice job.
Me too.
I haven't seen questions. If you guys asking questions, sorry, I've been ranting, raving. I guess now we can turn to the yeah, we got the accessories. Wow, this is turning to a long podcast. I've been talking a lot, so you tell us about the accessories, Zach.
Sure. So Microsoft finally updated the Surface Dock. Let me try and find the page here. For some reason, website's not working as it's supposed to. Yes, Microsoft has announced the Surface Dock 2, and it's more or less the same as the first version from a design standpoint. It's still a brick that sits on a table, but it now has USB-C ports, which the 2015 model lacks. They're not. Again, it's not Thunderbolt. Of course, it can't be. But it is USB-C now. So if you have any USB-C peripherals and you need to plug them in, you can do so with the Surface dock. I'm trying to pull up the article here because I didn't prepare. Surface Dock 2. Let's see. And also, in addition to the Surface Dock 2, Microsoft announced a USB travel hub, USB-C travel hub. Sorry. So the USB-C travel hub it's kind of like the dock, but it's not powered. So you just plug it in, and it gives you additional ports that you can then use to plug into your Surface of choice. And it's not just Surface actually. The USB-C travel hub works on most devices, I think. It has one USB-C port, one USB-A port, one gigabit Ethernet port, one HDMI 2.0 port, one VGA port, and one 3.5mm audio in jack. And yeah, like I said, this will work on all kinds of devices. It's not specific to Surface, unlike the Surface Dock 2, which is indeed limited to Surface. In fact, it's limited to just the newest Surfaces. This only works with the Surface Book 3, Surface Pro 7, Surface Pro X, Surface Laptop 3, and Surface Go 2. It won't work on any previous gen Surface device for reasons that I'm not too sure about. I think you might know more than me about that, Dan.
Sorry, what was the question?
Why is the Dock 2 only limited to the new Surfaces and doesn't work on the old ones?
Probably a firmware thing, and
Yeah.
it'd probably be something that could be addressed through a firmware update. That's a good point. I'll try to inquire about. I'm not really too sure about that. Some of the info around the dock too wasn't as clear as some of the other devices. But yeah, it's got like, as you mentioned, Type-C ports. So it's got like 4 now. So they got rid of, I think, the HDMI or I forgot if it's have HDMI. I think they got rid of the display port, which is getting old. But in the big thing, of course, it has the in-tune management now, so that companies can remotely control the device and manage it remotely, which is a big deal for corporations. If you're just buying it for a home, this doesn't matter. Big deal for companies, though, who can then control the ports, what gets plugged into it, what's active, and all that kind of jazz. And yeah, the wattage went up on it, so it should be able to handle, of course, the Surface Book.
It went up to 120 watts, which the previous one was only 90 watts.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because technically the Surface Book 3 15-inch uses 127 watts.
Uh-oh.
And so where's the extra 7 watts going to go? I don't know.
It says our article here says it can provide a total of 199 watts to help any power other devices.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
Yeah.
So probably it'll be fine. But yeah, they're gonna have a bigger brick for that. That's what that means. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's not an exciting dock upgrade. It's almost like, why couldn't they have done that 2 years ago? But again, I think the Surface team is pretty small, so I really think they can only work on so many projects at once and devote their time and attention to things.
Yeah. A few people asking why VGA on the USB-C travel hub. It's because people in the enterprise use it. That's literally the only answer. If you go into a conference room, more often than not, you'll find a projector which still uses VGA. So that's why this has VGA on it. You don't have to use the VGA port. You don't have to be offended that it's there. It's there for those who need it. But again, you've got USB-C and HDMI on it as well, so you should be fine.
Yeah, Zach's right. I mean, if you ever go to even schools and colleges and IT departments or businesses, they have those conference rooms in the middle. They have like where all the cables come out. Yeah. Like VGA is just always there, and it's just like one of those things that won't kind of go away. It's just there's almost always VGA. I know a lot of places are switching to Type-C, but you'd be amazed that the lag in enterprise to switch over to like Type-C, it's years behind where the consumer market is. So that's why Dell, I have a few Dell hubs too. They have VGA on them. It's pretty common with enterprise. If you're a consumer, it seems weird. I get it. But don't forget, there's nothing inherently special about a Type-C Surface hub, right? Travel hub. You can go on Amazon. We've done reviews of them. There are tons of Type-C hubs that you can buy with the configuration you want. Like maybe you want Ethernet, maybe you want 2 Type-A ports. Usually you get an HDMI, which is a little bit more common. So you can find those on the market. I think Microsoft is kind of capitalizing a little bit on their name here. It's a direct B2B move. If you're a business, you're buying a bunch of Surface Go's, you would also be like, oh, we need some travel hubs for our employees. Microsoft could be like, we make a travel hub. We've tested it. It works 100% with our devices. It has the stuff you need probably. So that's really the move there. If you're a consumer and you see this, you're like, not that impressed, and that's fine. It's like I said, it's for kind of a different market. Even the dock is mostly geared towards that kind of environment. Although a lot of people use dock too for their home setups. Our managing editor uses it, and so like um, it's there for people who want it. At least it's a little bit more normal.
Yeah. So the Dock 2 costs $260, whereas the USB-C Travel Hub is only $100. So quite a bit cheaper. But again, the USB-C Travel Hub isn't a dock. You shouldn't be buying it as a dock replacement. The dock is has power delivery and stuff, whereas the USB-C Hub doesn't. It's more of just like something that gives your device additional ports, whereas the dock is like a dedicated thing that enterprises can take advantage of. So, yeah, I think that's basically all the big stuff coming out of the Surface department today. As Dan mentioned at the top of the show, there are some new keyboards, although they're not new keyboards. They're the same keyboards that were announced back in October, except now they're just being sold as bundles. So you can get the new Microsoft Bluetooth keyboard with the Office button and the emoji button with the new mouse that they released, as well as the ergonomic one with the Microsoft Mobile Mouse, which again, all of this was announced back in October. They're just now launching them as bundles. So if you care about that, go for it.
Someone's mentioning that I should put D-brand skins in my earbuds. I wouldn't be surprised if D-brand. I think it'd be literally the most simple skin for them to make, since it would just be
You're
a
right.
dot.
Yeah.
It'd be a simple circle. They just got to get that measurement, and it'd probably still charge $20 for it. Yeah, yeah, get like carbon or snake skin or the dragon skin or whatever. It probably would work, right? I mean, the haptic should still work through the skin. That's usually okay. It'd be interesting if they do that. But yeah, in theory, you'd be able to completely change. If you just put that one skin on, it would dramatically change the color. I mean, you can even put red on there or orange. Like really go.
Any obnoxious color you want.
Yes.
So we'll answer some questions now, since we're basically done with the sort of rundowns of everything. A few people
And
asking.
if you guys, I was going to say, if you guys are tuning in to this just now, this will be available for replay on YouTube and our mixer.com/Windows Central channel. So you can go back and watch from the beginning. Usually takes a Mixer is pretty quick. They do it pretty right away. And YouTube, I think, is a little bit longer behind, but we'll make sure we'll post it probably on Windows Central as well. So.
Some people are asking, does the Surface Headphones 2 have bigger padding on the sort of top band? Because some people feel it feels bruised on the top of their head after prolonged use.
Good question. I always say no.
No. There you go.
Feels exactly the same.
That's why we're here, answering your questions.
Yeah, that's usually where like a double band design comes in, but double bands add a lot of weight to headphones, so that's a trade-off. I'm super sensitive on that apex part of my head, so I know what you're talking about. I never had a huge problem with Surface headphones, not any more than my Bose or my Sonys. They're all kind of feel the same to me. But I'll try to, again, address that in the review for these.
Lots of people asking about the Duo. As far as we're aware, they're still planning to ship it earlier than Holiday 2020. I think the earliest we could see it is July, possibly. I am planning to do a deep dive on the Surface Duo specs soon, because we kind of have them now. But we're not allowed to talk about them just yet. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Yeah, well, as far as I'm aware, it's still going to launch earlier than Holiday 2020. July is seeming more likely, but it's hard to sort of tell because these dates move around all the time. You've got to remember that the Surface hardware announced today was supposed to be announced early April. These dates are moving so often because of the pandemic and whatnot that it's so hard to pinpoint when exactly something will be announced. Up until a couple of weeks before it's announced, like with the May 6th date, we sort of knew about 2.5 weeks ago, but that was only after it was moving around all over the place. So yeah, we're still expecting early, but nothing to share today about that.
So I was asking about, will Microsoft bring their Surface products to new markets and countries? I believe Mexico was new. There was like one or two new countries.
Yeah, it's South Africa and Mexico, I believe.
Yeah, yep.
Which is nice.
Is the trackpad on the Book 3? It's the same size. They did not change.
Which I can't
I
believe
mentioned that article. Yeah. Yeah, exact same size trackpad, not bigger.
Do the headphones 2 twist the opposite way so the cups sit on your neck and shoulders? Yes, that's right. They did change that. The originals only do 90 degrees. The headphones 2 do 180.
And I'm now demoing those if you're watching this video live.
Yeah.
It's a nice little feature.
Pro X versus Go 2 with the Win32 apps. Which will be better? And by Win32 means the emulation. Which will be better? And is the Pro X at $999 better than the $729 or is it really close for the performance between emulated Win32 and native on the Core M3?
Whew,
Yeah.
it's tough. I have some of the benchmarks up today. So this is why it's tough. This is why it gets really complicated. On single core usage, actually the Go 2 with the Core M3 will slightly beat the Pro X.
Wow.
But on multi-core, it gets beat by more on the Pro X because the Pro X is technically octa-core. It's 8 cores. The Core M3 is dual core. So like that's unfortunate. Um, so I don't know how to really completely answer that. Like I don't know what apps you use are only single core, single threaded apps versus things that are multi-core. Like I don't really know how to break that up about on your usage or even my own usage. That's why it's hard to sort of answer that question. But you can go look right now. If you go on Windows Central, I have that article. It's the top featured article right now with the benchmarks. And in there, I do have the Pro X benchmarked for Geekbench and stuff, both emulation and native. And you can compare those to Go and Go 2. I mean, it's just looking at numbers, which is kind of hard to experience. I mean, it's really hard. We're getting to like this point where if you put these devices in front of me, I'm not noticing a huge difference. And then there's also things like, even if the Go 2 is slightly faster, I might prefer the Pro X because it's just got a bigger, higher resolution display and a bigger keyboard. Like, I kind of enjoy using that experience more than the Go 2's tinier experience. And so I'm almost willing to put up, even if it is slightly slower with that, just to have that. So it's a weird trade-off, right? But you're really getting into like real nitpicking in terms of performance. It's not like night and day. And using Win32 on the Pro X has been pretty fine. Yeah, I mean, once it gets into emulation, it actually runs pretty well.
Someone's asking, is the padding on the Surface headphones replaceable? I don't think it is. I wouldn't try ripping it off.
Yeah, I don't think so. Battery life would have been a differentiating factor, but the Pro X battery is the same as the Go 2. I'm not really prepared to commit to that. I mean, it kind of depends if you're doing Win32 emulation, possibly. But again, that gets complicated because, like, how you use the Pro X. Like, how much of your apps you're running are Win32 all the time? For myself, it's not a lot. It's barely any, actually. I use Edge all the time. I use a lot of web apps, and I use UWP apps. The only thing I really run that's Win32, and even this is the hybrid case, is the Office. And Office has been optimized for ARM. It actually runs native on ARM. It just has parts of it that the shim that runs as Win32. I'm not running Photoshop on the Pro X, and I don't know what other Win32 apps I'm running on the Pro X. I'm not. That's why the difference between using the Pro X and the Go 2 in terms of apps is the exact same for me. And I lean towards web apps, UWP apps in the browser. And that's not going to change, which means the Pro X is actually going to get a battery advantage there. So.
Hey, Zach, if you already have the Duo specs, can you just confirm if it's what you and Dan have speculated for a previous podcast? Yeah, so what we've said before is it'll be a Snapdragon 855 with 6 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage minimum. No wireless charging, no USB-C. No USB-C. No wireless charging, no NFC. So you can only charge through the USB-C port. I think that's all we've really said so far. And yeah, that's exactly what we'll be shipping. No 5G as well, we've said. So yeah, if you're a big fan of wireless charging and you use NFC all the time, the Surface Duo is not going to be for you. But yeah, like I said, we'll talk about the Surface Duo specs more in the near future when I'm able to.
Does Surface Go 2 have Xbox Wireless? It does not. And how does it run Xstream? I don't know what Xstream is. I mean, xCloud, I guess. It'll be xCloud will be totally fine. Yeah, it doesn't do Xbox Wireless, but I find that kind of a moot point. So the thing with Xbox Wireless, the actual protocol, which is in Surface Book 15-inch, it's not in the Go. The benefit there is it gives you audio support through the controller, so you can plug in your headphones. That's kind of cool. And it also get rumble support, which is also kind of cool. Are they necessary? Yeah. but that's okay. You just pick up an Xbox One wireless controller with Bluetooth and just do that. And that's actually how I use it all the time. And I love gaming on the Surface Go. And I'm going to love gaming on the Go too because it's basically a bigger Switch. But I just use the Xbox controller there, and the game streaming stuff will work beautifully on the Go too. I mean, I'm running on the Pro X and it runs fine, so it's not going to be an issue there.
Where does the headphone jack sit on the Surface Book 3? It's at the top right, am I correct? Of the
Yeah,
screen.
I don't have it with me. I mean, here, but I don't think they changed that.
Yeah, they've not
That'd be
changed
weird.
it. So the Book 2 had it at the top right, and the Book 3 should have it in the same place. It's a stupid place for it, to be honest, but oh well. they.
Bezel still. Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Bezel still look huge on the book. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, they are.
they look normal to me. They look normal. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say they look huge. They just look like a normal. I mean, go look at some of Apple's laptops and tell me. Yeah,
I'd also say they look thinner on the Book 15-inch. The bigger screen makes the bezels look much thinner than they are on the 13-inch one.
yeah. I don't mind the bezels. I mean, whatever. I get it. I understand why people want thinner stuff, but like these got a dual purpose as a tablet, so that's plays a
Yeah.
factor.
They obviously skipped the Surface Pen Cradle in the type cover for the Go 2. Does that make you concerned that the Pro 8 will also forget the pen slot on its type cover? Well, the rumor is the next Surface Pro will be redesigned similarly to the Surface Pro X. I assume if you take a look at the Surface Pro X and make it a bit thicker, I think that's what the Surface Pro 8 is going to look like. And so that will likely have the pen stuff. I think the reason they introduced the pen last year is because this is the future of the Surface Pen, but they can't update every design all at once with the ability to wirelessly charge. That's why the Book 3 and the Go 2 are still using the old Surface Pen, because they don't have support for you can't wirelessly charge the new Surface Pen on those designs. Once the redesigns come around, then that will be sort of included, and the Slim Pen will become the new sort of default Surface Pen. But yeah, no, I think the Pro 8 will have Slim Pen support, assuming the rumor that the redesign is on its way is true.
Someone's asking, am I using the microphone on the earbuds for this? No, I'm using a standard studio microphone. I'll test out the microphones. Maybe I'll try it on the podcast at one point, but my hunch is my really expensive sound canceling microphone setup is going to be better than these. So just for sake of recording, we're using that. Can I use them with iPhones? And what about the falling issue with the earbuds? Yeah, these are totally compatible with Apple iPhone. They're going to have an app for it to control them and all that kind of stuff. So no issue there. They're not. They don't fall out. They do not fall out. I'm doing this. They're not even close. They don't even slightly move, and I can't even tell they're in. Like I've been wearing them for an hour, almost 2 hours now. I have no soreness. I can just keep wearing them forever. They're super comfortable. I mean, they're really good that way. So I was asking, are they worth $200? That's up to you and your wallet and what your partner says. It's hard for me to make a comment about that. I'll say they're very high quality.
Do you think we will see a Surface Pro and laptop refresh this fall? I will say this: every year since 2017, Microsoft has released a new Surface Pro and Surface Laptop. I believe, maybe 2018. Either way, it's around. It's been every year. So I would expect a new Surface Pro and Surface Laptop later this year. The laptop 4, if I had to guess, would be using AMD's new Ryzen 4000 series CPUs, which are way better than the AMD ones in the current laptop 3. The Pro 8 will likely have a sort of similar design to the Surface Pro X. I assume it'll still be Intel, maybe even AMD as well. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know if we'll get a redesign of the laptop. I don't think we will, because we don't really need the pen on the laptop. So yeah. I'm also hearing we might see the Surface Studio 3 in the fall of this year, and I have no idea what's new with that other than probably new chips. I hope when they release it, it's like current this time instead of always a gen behind. The Surface Studio 2 launched with a 7th gen chip when 8th gen was a thing. That really it's just insane.
Yeah. So I was asking about Surface Connect, when it's going to die. No indication it will, especially with the Surface Dock 2 coming out with Surface Connect. I think the most we might see is them do Surface Connect Plus at some point, make it more powerful. But a lot of people like Surface Connect. I'm a big fan of it too. I mean, so long as they have Type-C charging on these devices, what do I care? I mean, if in a pinch, I can always just charge with Type C. It's okay. I don't see the benefit of removing it just to have what more Type C ports, I guess. I don't know. But a lot of people like the MagSafe charger that it has. And don't forget that charger also has the extra USB-A thing. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. But it's a pretty powerful thing, right? I think it's going to stick around for a long time.
Do you think they should have announced the Duo as well today? That's a good question. Had there not been a pandemic and had this Surface been, these new Surface products been announced at an actual event that press attended and was live streamed, I think they would have definitely detailed the Surface Duo's release date and specs today. The reason they didn't is because Microsoft is yet to make the case for Surface Duo, really. They've sort of introduced it, but then they didn't go any further. They didn't do any demos or use cases or talk about specs. And they really still need to do that. So I think they're going to have the Surface Duo be its own thing, because then they can have like a video like event or something where they can sit down and actually talk about the Duo, show it off, show how you use it, show how it's better than whatever you're currently using. They can't do that in a blog post. You can't really sell something like that just by writing about it. So I think that's why they didn't talk about the Duo today. But had it been a real event, and I think they definitely would have.
Just to clarify, some people are confused. I am not using the microphones on the earbuds. I'm using this big studio mic here because we're recording this and it's better quality. So I'll save the mics for the review. But no, these are not the same. Does the Surface Book 3 have the same instant on as Surface Pro 7 offered by the recent Intel chips? I don't know officially, but I think it's very safe to assume yes, because Surface Pro 7 got it. Surface Go 2 now has it. Surface Laptop 3 also has it. And even Surface Pro X has it. So, it's probably really safe to assume. I'd be shocked if they didn't, because there'd be no reason not to. But when I get the Book 3 in, I'll let you guys, I'll put that in the review and stuff like that. I'll make sure to find out. But I'm pretty sure it does.
Did they improve the pen at all? No, it's the same, bulk standard Surface Pen that's been around for a while now. Works just fine on the Go 2 and Book 3. Have you guys heard anything about an updated full Cortana app on Android? The Microsoft launcher dropped Cortana support, and when I switched back to the Cortana app, I noticed it freezes whenever you hold the home button. Cortana's going away on Android and iOS. That Cortana app is more or less being deprecated. Maybe, I think it is everywhere apart from the US, but even then in the US, it's going to be rendered basically useless. The ability to not set it as home has been the case for a while now, and I think it's a deliberate design choice. Microsoft doesn't really want you using Cortana as a digital assistant in that way. They want you to be using it to be productive in email and Outlook and stuff. So,
do you think Surface Go 2 justifies its price, considering one has to shell out extra money for the pen and the keyboard? So, this is impossible to answer because it's completely subjective. It depends on, one, how much money you make, how much money you have, and how much you really need a Surface Go. And I question, it doesn't come with the pen. Do you need a pen? Zach, do you use a Surface Pen?
No.
I mean, turns out actually
I have two right here and I never use them.
One of the reasons why Microsoft stopped, putting the pen, bundling it together, is for two reasons. One, it's not free. When they put the pen in for free with the Surface device you were buying it. They were charging you. That was a hidden cost in that device. With them not putting the pen in, they could actually either save money and not charge as much, or charge as much but use that money to do things like improve the RAM, improve the SSD, improve the display. They could stick it back into the device to make the overall experience better, and then leave it to the customer if they want a pen to go and buy it. But part of the reason they did that is because I think it was something like, do you remember what the numbers was, Zach? It was something like only 30% of people use the pen. It's not a huge number of people that buy these and use the pen. I mean, they always show it in the videos, but the actual number of people who use it regularly is pretty small. Even on the Pro X, I barely use the pen. But I love the design with the pen in there, because that means that one rare time I need to sign a PDF or something like that, it is there for me to use. But even that is extra. You can buy that keyboard with no pen, right? They do that. So again, it's about the cost thing. It's not like it's free. So there's that whole thing. Then there's the other thing with the keyboard. They don't bundle it together, but they also have like 5 or 6 different colors of keyboard. So could you imagine you're going into the Microsoft store and it's like where you order online and it's like, I want the M3, 8 gigabytes of RAM, LTE, but I need the red keyboard. And they're like, well, we don't have that one in stock. We have this one. Like it's really hard for bundling everything together. So what they would do is they'll still be packaged separately, and they just guy will grab one and grab the other, and they're still just going to charge you the same. I mean, I kind of get the argument here, and but the cost and it, what else is there in this price range? There's the iPad. Okay. Um, iPad is very good for being an iPad. Is it really good for being a computer? Maybe. Again, it depends how you use these things. Like if you throw on those Logitech keyboards and Bluetooth, or you buy that new Magic keyboard, which is, now you're talking, that keyboard is like what, $200, I think, on the 11-inch version, plus the iPad. Like it's also not cheap. I don't know. I don't know where else you want them to cut costs. If you look at what the Surface Go is, even the the $400 model, that display, the Windows Hello, you get micro SD expansion, you get dual stereo speakers, you get touch and inking support, you get dual cameras on it, like you got that awesome kickstand. Like there's nothing else. There's nothing else on the market that's doing all of that that's cheaper or better. So, and for me, that's like, well, if you want this, that's what you pay. If you don't think it's worth the money, good luck on finding something else that will meet all this criteria. There's not a lot out there. They do a lot for $400. They really do. I mean, the design of the chassis is amazing on this thing. It's quality. It's not plastic. It doesn't creak. There's no moving parts on it. Like it's just a solid kind of device. That costs money.
So someone's asking, so how do you use Cortana with the Surface Earbuds? Inside the Surface Audio app will be an option to set your preferred assistant. So you don't, as far as I'm aware, you don't need the Cortana app to set Cortana as your default assistant on the Surface Earbuds. You just do it through the audio app, and then you'll be able to tap and hold and speak to Cortana. But what it could do, we don't know. It might only be limited to the productivity-based tasks, such as, or the actual audio headphone things, such as change track, or skip, next, volume up, volume down, or check my emails, stuff like that. That has been advertised as a feature of the Surface Earbuds. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Once the Surface Audio app is out, we will obviously check and write up how that all works and stuff. Will you be able to set another assistant on the Surface Headphones 1? That's a good question. So we asked Microsoft if the audio app will work with the Headphones 1, and they said yes, but they've not given specifics as to what features will be present on the original Surface Headphones. I secretly think yes, it will. I think most of the Surface Headphones 2 software features will be present on the Surface Headphones 1.
You think Microsoft will release new designs for NBA and NFL keyboards for Surface Pros? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how well those sold the last time. I have my Patriots one. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe if it makes sense. But like I said, I really don't know what the numbers were for the last one. I don't think they really sold a ton, to be honest. But it's hard to know.
Does the Surface Book 3 have the same issue as the previous model where around battery drain and stuff? No, Microsoft fixed that. So the charger is now more powerful when it's plugged in. Even gaming, it shouldn't discharge. At the very least, it will remain at the same percentage.
Yeah. I mean, it's something we'll take a closer look at the review. But yeah, Zach's right. It's a bigger charger now. And in theory, it should be enough. But yeah, we'll have to actually kind of wait and see. Neo has been pushed back to when? Will they abandon it again? When did they abandon Surface Neo the first time?
10 years ago when it was called Courier.
Yeah. Which cracks me up because the promise of what Courier was 10 years ago could not have been. It would have been such a janky, terrible experience with like 2 hours of battery life. If you think about it, we're just at the point now where we can basically make what Courier was kind of shown off in that pretend video to actually come to existence. So no, they're pushing back the dual screen stuff a little bit, and I think it's the right move because they know a couple things. One, that Apple is moving towards making Mac OS run on ARM, and they're going to be there. And clearly, iPad OS is becoming more like a PC. So you have that coming. You have Google still with the Chromebook OS, which is still gaining traction in schools, especially United States. And who knows what's coming up with their new operating system. So there's external pressure there. And I would also say that, you know, 10X has been well received. It's in the hands of developers now with the emulator. You guys have seen it. A lot of people are going like, well, I want that on my Surface Go and all that. And I think Panos is like, you know what? We should bring that to market sooner than later. And I think that's all that is. And if you think about it, dual screens aren't like, they're not going to miss the boat on that, right? There's not going to be like someone else is going to beat them on dual screen PCs. That's not going to happen. But it needs to be pushed back 6 months, 9 months, so we can get it on common devices and low cost, school devices for schools and education or thin clients. I mean, I think you guys would much prefer to have 10X on like a Surface Go kind of device first and a dual screen one, right? So I think this was a smart decision, but no, this dual screen stuff is still absolutely happening. And all that means presumably is that Neo's hardware can get better too. So how is Microsoft planning for sales during this pandemic? I mean, they're doing all right. They're shipping stuff. So, can people, afford to buy it? That's a separate issue, but they need to keep going on as a company. So no AMD processors for Surface Book 3. No AMD processor for Surface Book 3.
Will the Surface Go 2 be upgradable to Windows 10X? As far as I'm aware, no. There will not be a direct upgrade path from Windows 10 to Windows 10X. There may be an option to flash Windows 10X, an image of it onto your Surface Go 2 manually, if that's something you want to do at some point in the future, but it will not be delivered to Surface Go customers as an automatic update. It will be something optional that the user has to have sort of knowledge about to do, because you'll have to plug your Surface Go in, you'll have to open up a program, flash the Surface Go, which will wipe all of your data from it because there's no direct upgrade path. So it'll be a whole process, and I think it will only really be aimed at enthusiasts and developers more than general consumers, if they do it, of course.
Someone's asking, will the Surface Book 3 charger work with Surface Book 2? And I see where you're going there. Would that make up basically for the lack of power to Surface Book 2? In the history of Surface chargers, there's never been a case where one charger can't work with another device, regardless of the wattage, higher or lower. So I'll have to test it, but there should be no reason why that charger wouldn't work with Surface Book 2. Obviously, when I get one, I'll make sure to mention that, but the expectation is it should work. Right now, you can take a Surface Book 2 charger and throw it on the Surface Go, and it'll totally work, and it's not going to blow up your Surface Go.
Yeah. I saw one. Is the keyboard exactly the same for the Go 2? Yes, except for the magnets on the inside, which are there to help keep it closed. Otherwise, everything else is exactly the same, apart from the colors. The colors are slightly different, I think, right, Dan?
Yeah, I didn't go through all the new colors, but I have what looks to be a darker platinum that matches the Surface Laptop 3's darker platinum. I'd stirred a little better, but I think there's also other new colors too, which means I can go look at it and decide if I want to buy one. So I was asking about the off topic, but new XPS 15 2-in-1. As far as I know, there isn't one. The XPS 15 2-in-1 was an experimental device on many levels. They had the maglev keyboard, which was mediocre, mixed reviews. I liked it. A lot of people hated it. It also had that weird AMD Intel chip that was on there. And that didn't really turn into much either. It wasn't that great of a chip. And the device didn't sell well. And last time I talked to Dell, they said no, they don't have any plans to make another 15-inch 2-in-1. So your only bet is HP, Samsung, or a Surface Book.
Can the aptX thing be moved to Surface Headphones 1? No, I don't think so. As far as we're aware, I think that's a hardware thing, right? Requires new hardware for that.
Yeah.
Do the Surface Earbuds work with an iOS device? Yes. How good would it be? I don't know. I mean, if you use, if you're asking like, will the pairing process be the same as like AirPods? I don't think so. I think it'll be more of a manual process. You'd have to go into settings and pair it and stuff. It won't be as magical as the AirPods for sure, but they will work just fine. All the feature set will be there.
Do you think the Buds are going to be a hit? Microsoft should maybe give discount when bought with a new device. there could definitely be tie-ins. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do that, especially with the Duo at some
Yeah.
point. Um, are they going to be a hit? I don't know. I don't think expectations are it's going to be like a hit. I think again, this is a tool for productivity, business kind of angles, which is not as sexy as like consumers and just general mom and dad, right? Um, and you have a lot of people look at them and they're like, oh, I don't like the looks, and then that's the thing. Is the value there? I think for some people, for me, I like the way they look. I like the way they feel specifically. Like the ergonomics here is really what matters. And I don't know how others feel, the iPad or the AirPods and all that. All I know is these don't come off my ears. They're very comfortable, even after 2.5 hours of wearing them almost. Um, so we'll see. It depends what people think about them, but it's a tough space to compete in, that's for sure.
Is it worth upgrading from the Surface headphones 1 to 2? Are they that different? Well, we haven't reviewed them yet, but in my opinion, I would say probably not, unless you're a die-hard audio fanatic and you need the latest, Bluetooth 5, the aptX stuff. I think, again, if you paid full price for the original Surface headphones, you should keep hold of those for at least until the next version, because you paid a lot, so get your money's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I mentioned during the podcast, if you use your headphones hours a day, multiple times, it's your go-to device. It's like a watch. You just always have them with you, and you really, really like them, and you want the black ones. I could see doing an upgrade. It might be worth it. If you only use them a couple times a week, once a week, a couple times a month, yeah, definitely. I don't want to see that as being worth it.
Can the Surface Earbuds be used for working out? Will they fall out when working out and stuff?
They should be okay for working out. They don't feel that different. I have very similar designs, Bose wireless earbuds that do the same kind of thing, and I've never had them fall out. And these feel pretty much like that. They are IPX4 rated, so sweat, you should be okay with them. Yeah, they should be all right. Let's see. They're not as rugged built as like the Bose, um, but and they definitely don't feel like they're going to fall out. And these feel lighter than the Bose.
Do you think Microsoft will make 10x free to help drive down costs? I don't think they'll make it free for OEMs, and 10x will not be something that you can just buy off the shelf. It's not going to be like Windows 10 Home and Pro. 10x will be something that you can only get on new devices. So you'll probably be just paying for 10x through whatever you're paying for when it comes to the actual device you're buying. I think Microsoft may get around that for those flashing 10x onto existing devices. If they let you do that, they might not, remember. If they do let you flash 10x onto things like the Surface Go and whatnot, I think it'll be free, but only because you're testing Windows 10x and your data is invaluable. That's how you're paying them, is through your data and telemetry. And I think that's the only sort of time where it will be offered for free. But even then, it's not being offered for free. It's something that you have to, you're testing 10x for them. There's a difference.
Someone's asking how long did we have these devices before today's announcement?
About
Less
three
than
weeks.
24 hours.
We've had them since October.
Less than 24 hours. It's not very long. In fact, I haven't even turned on the new Surface headphones yet. I just haven't had a chance to. So I still got to play with those next few days. There's another question there. Oh, how's the earbuds with passive noise canceling? Is it good enough for a commute? I mean, I'm going to say, I don't know how you commute. If you're driving, it's fine. I used them in the car last night. And it was actually okay. Most people probably mean commuting, though, like bus and subway and train and all that kind of stuff, in which case there's like zero noise, passive noise canceling on these, like zero. There's none. I mean, you're going to hear about 95% of your normal audio. I mean, there's a little bit of a blocking there, but it's like 95 to 97% of the audio is going to come through. So don't buy these if you're looking for, Microsoft would say we have over-the-ear headphones and noise canceling. And even those headphones, by the way, the Surface Headphone 2, these things, Microsoft says they're not really aimed at frequent flying, like for airplanes. They're not tuned for that. the active noise canceling is really tuned for them for office environments and people talking to filter out human voices.
Yeah.
That's really what these are tuned to be. Um,
It's really the exact opposite of the earbuds. The earbuds are for the office,
yeah,
but allowing you to hear what's going on, and the headphones are for the office, but blocking out everything that's
right,
going on. That's not to say they won't work on an airplane. You will still
right.
be able to
Yeah, they
use them on
do.
the plane.
Yeah, they totally do. It's just like whereas I think the Bose QC35-2s, which I have here, are really tuned for airplane travel, really filtering out engine noise, but they're not very good for like babies and like other people talking necessarily. It's a little bit, but how you tune those and what you're being more aggressive at, I think, is different. But Microsoft is very clear that they really spent the time on the active noise canceling here to go after office environmental noise and people talking, not so much flying. But you can use these on airplanes, and I've used them, and it definitely helps. But I don't think they have the advantage over something like Bose there. But then these are probably better in the office than Bose. So, can the USB-C port on the Surface headphones be used for audio, or can it only be used for charging? That'd be weird. No, it's only for charging. I know. I kind of know what you're saying. There's no processor in this thing.
You're talking
Um,
about the headphones
for
too, the
oh,
USB-C port on them.
headphones too. Oh,
I don't think you can.
yeah. I think they did tell me. I think you can.
Oh,
No,
okay.
maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of different headphones. I'll make a mental note of that for the review. Hopefully, um, yeah. Can you use the cable?
It's a good
Yeah,
question.
I don't think it can. I'm going to say probably not.
Yeah, I'd guess no.
I haven't seen headphones that do that because that's an extra processor and chip that needs to go on to make that happen.
Yeah.
Instead, it just defaults to the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Some of the bigger questions related to that, which I was confusing with, is does the active noise canceling work while plugged in with Type C and recharging? Because sometimes that doesn't work. I have to check on these two.
I'm a student looking for a new 2-in-1 and was going to buy the base model Surface Book 3. I haven't considered the Pro 7 as the screen seems too small. Am I wasting my money? So that's true. You do get a better higher resolution screen that is also larger than the Pro 7s. That's true with the Book 3, but it's also $1,600, I think it is, compared to what is the equivalent Surface Pro? I think it's 999, maybe 899.
For
It's
the Core i3 or
for the i5.
oh yeah, I think it's 999.
999.
Yeah.
That's a big saving there. But yeah, if you were looking for the bigger screen, if you need the 13.5-inch screen, then to be fair, I would go and get. Oh no, you want a 2-in-1? Yeah, the Book is the only option for you. Then if you need a Surface, but at that point, I think I'd consider looking at Dell and the XPS 2-in-1 line, because I think you might get more bang for your buck. Because I just yeah, if you're diehard on Surface, then the Book 3 with its 13.5-inch display that can detach is your only option at £1,600 or dollars. It won't be a bad device. It's just not good value for money. That's all. How is the Surface Book 2 holding up in terms of wear and tear? Will it drop in price in a few months? I think it's already dropped in price. If you look at Microsoft Store and stuff, you can probably get discounts on it already. I don't think they're huge discounts. Microsoft is never really good at severely discounting old products. But yeah, you can already save a few bucks on the Surface Book 2 series. You have been able to for a while now because they're trying to clear stock of it. So how has the Book 2 held up, Dan? Mine held up fine. It got a few dings on it and
Mm-hmm.
scuff marks because that just happens over time. But it works fine. Like the hinge was still fine. The detach mechanism works great. Like I didn't have any issues with it. No battery bulging or nothing. Yeah, mine was fine, I'd say.
I did get a couple little minor dents,
Yeah.
and I did have the power button on my 13-inch. It's a common problem. I kind of collapsed a little bit. Like it still works, but it's like kind of tilted in. Looks like I got mashed or something like that in my bag. So yeah, the power button's a little bit exposed on that exterior part, so you have to be careful. But other than that, it's been okay.
Do the headphones too come with a headphone jack cable? Yeah, the first ones
Yes.
did, and yeah, the second ones do as well.
Yeah. Do you think the iPad solved the lappability problem with its new keyboard? Actually, no. Um, that's a good, interesting keyboard, and I think The Verge, Dieter Bohn did a really good analysis of it. It actually works very well at a desk and stationary. Um, it doesn't work so well in the lap. It's not nearly as flexible as the Surface because the Surface has that the hinged, kickstand, which is much more flexible, both for angling the device and how far you spread it, plus the angled keyboard. Um, so I think Apple kind of made a really nice dockable iPad Pro that can be used as sort of almost like a desktop situation where you plug it in, docks and all that. I don't think it really is going to be much better in the lab. I think it's going to be kind of still awkward there. And that just has to do with the fact that that's a tablet that they're really trying to force to be a two-in-one, whereas something like the Surface Pro was always designed with that in mind. Nothing really beats the Surface Pro's design. That's not to say I think there's some creative, interesting things they've done with that, like that, how it floats is super cool. But then you see the complaints are the angle at which you can turn it is very limited, and it's not nearly as, the Surface Pro, you can like almost lay it flat at an angle like a drafting board, and it has so much more variability for how you want to view and lay it. And you don't have that with the Mac, the Magic keyboard. And instead, it's a very limited set of angles you can move at. And it seems like people don't find it ideal. Like it's one thing to say it doesn't move a lot, but is it does it not move a lot, but also is like not good. Like you wish you could, and it doesn't, right? So it seems to be that latter case. People wish they could pull it further, and it doesn't. And so, between that, the weight, and the $300 price tag, at least for the 12-inch version, it's an interesting piece of engineering. I will say that though.
Which model of the Surface Go would you recommend if it was your only computer? If it's your only computer, the Core M3 model. Get the Core M3 with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. If it's a companion PC, I think you can probably skimp out on the Intel Pentium Gold, as long as you know what it is and what it's capable of, and you have your actual PC on hand or to do your intensive tasks. Then I think you can skimp out. But if the Go 2 is your only PC, definitely go for the M3 model.
Does the stand dig into your leg? I've used a Surface 2, but the stand's a bit sharpish. I don't find the stands as sharp as I think the Pros too. I don't have this issue. I mean, because it's not a
Dan
heavy
never
device.
wears shorts. That's why.
I used to wear shorts. I wear shorts when I'm at home, but it's not like you have it on your lap and then you're pressing down from the top like a cutter or something like that, right? So like there's not a lot of pressure on it. So I don't really get this idea like it digs into your leg. It's not really digging. But everybody's a little bit different here. I've never had a problem with this, it being uncomfortable. I use it all the time. Someone like Mary Jo Foley, she has a little stubbier legs, we'll say. She finds the whole lappability problem with Surface. She just can't use them. I have actually pretty long legs, so I don't have this issue. So all this stuff is relative, but I've never really had a problem with any of these devices um, digging into my legs. No.
Would you recommend the Surface Go M3 or the Surface Pro 7 i3? That's a good question.
I think you can technically get more storage and RAM with the Surface Go. I forgot. I gotta look at. We're going to
I'll
do
look it
a
up now.
post
Hang
about
on.
that. Yeah, I've asked some of our writers to do a post comparing the financials of that. I mean, really it comes down to the screen size, to be honest. Like, do you want really small and portable, or you want something bigger? I think the 12.3 inch is more enjoyable than a 10.5 inch, but um, performance. I think the i3 would probably do a little bit better because yeah, I think the i3 should be have a higher TDP, so it should get more power out of it.
Right, let's compare these side by side. Let's configure these now. So the Surface Pro 7 starts at $750, and that's for the Platinum Intel Core i3 with 4 gigs of RAM and 128
Yeah,
gigs of storage. The Go 2 for that same price, or the closest to it,
$100 cheaper, right?
well, if you get the LTE, if you get just the Wi-Fi only, it's 629, and you get 4 gigs of
Yeah, so
additional
$100.
RAM.
So it's $100 cheaper.
Yeah, a bit more than $100. Yeah, but you get 8 gigs of
Okay.
RAM instead of 4 gigs.
Right. Yes, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Okay.
If you go for the LTE model, it's 729. But you're probably not considering the LTE model if you're considering the base Surface Pro. You know, I would probably go for the Go. You know,
Yeah, you get the more RAM
you get
and
the
you'll
more
save
RAM
some money to buy that keyboard.
because the
Yeah,
because the
it actually,
M3 and the i3 aren't too different, right? They're more or less the same.
yeah, the i3, like I said, will have a higher TDP, so it should get more performance out of it. Whether or not that's like a hugely noticeable thing, probably not. Um, but see that like I know when they were doing this, they purposely left that like $100,
Yeah.
$130 difference between the two so they don't overlap like that. Because if people would be like, that's stupid, or you just buy the Surface Pro, you know. But yeah, $130 difference, that's a keyboard, right? So they still have just enough space between those two categories to not cause that dramatic confusion. So it really comes down to, do you want the larger display, slightly more power, less RAM? Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
When are the earbuds available to purchase? You can buy them now. They'll start shipping next week. So if you head to
Yeah.
microsoftstore.com, if it's available in your region, you can put money down for them today.
Intel recently unlocked their DCH drivers for their graphics. Is it a good idea to wait on Microsoft? And, you know, this is such a weird one. It depends. That's the answer, right? Because it's fine to use the Intel ones from the Intel site right up to the point where they cause a bug and have an issue. And then I have to be like, no, they're not that good, right? How often does a bug come up with the Intel drivers that are official? I don't know. You know, it's really hard to obviously if you want to be just super safe, wait for the Microsoft ones through a Windows update. I will say, I've yet to really download like Intel drivers from, you know, their site directly. You notice like a massive difference. Sometimes there's like a bug that gets fixed. You usually see that early on with like new chipsets. This was popular during like Skylake when Skylake had a lot of problems. Sometimes getting a new Intel one would address them most, but I haven't really seen that much. It's not like they're going to really make that much of improvements, but you can always roll them back. I don't know. I don't think about these things very often. I don't really go through and update my drivers manually. So
Can I use the same type cover from the Go 1 on the Go 2? Yes. The type covers are interchangeable between generations.
if you're a student, you can get the Surface Earbuds for $180. That's a good point. Microsoft does have very
Nice.
good military and student discounts for all their stuff. So if you want a new Surface too, you can also use that discount. You need a EDU email, I believe, and I don't know if you need your ID, but they're pretty lenient on this stuff. But yes.
Do you recommend buying the Surface Book 2 in 2020?
Mm. You know, let me get the Surface Book 3 first and review it, and I'll try to throw in a paragraph about that. My hunch is you'd probably be fine. I don't think, yeah, okay, the new one's 50% more powerful, slightly better battery life. Does it really change the fundamental experience of it all? Probably not. You know, like I can't, if the new one had a larger trackpad or better display technology, I could point to that and be like, well, those are kind of quality of life things that we look for. They don't have that though. So it's literally just like better performance. And then, you know, I'd have to ask you, like, what do you plan on doing with it? Right. So it's kind of really tough to answer. By the way, Zach, I hope you know I'm still recording this. So was I supposed to stop? We didn't
It's
agree.
fine. We can just edit it out. But yeah, stop
I think it was
it.
okay.
To be
Yeah, I
fair
think it was
though,
up.
this went on much longer than I thought it was going to, so it might just be its own
Right.
episode at this point. If it is, then I'll just do the intro for it instead.
Yeah, we should just post this as a.
Yeah, I think we'll have to, and then we'll just do a quick rundown on Friday, and then we'll move on to other stuff.
I have a Go 1, but want more performance. Go to M3, Pro 7, wait for Pro 8. I mean, yeah, there's a problem with tech. There's always something better coming down the road, right? Um, you should be getting the Go because you want a tiny 10-inch or 10 and a
That's
half
right.
inch
Yeah.
device. If you're flexible and you're like, well, I may want a larger device that's heavier, then go for the Pro. I know it's hard. It's not like it's no different than I need an iPad Pro, the 11 inch or the 12 inch. It's like, I don't know. You know, I mean, a lot of people will actually tell you the 12.3 inch, whatever size they're at now, I forgot, is like too big. But some people prefer that. So I don't know. It's a tough question to answer. It's not like it's a huge difference. Or do you go for like the 9.7? They even make that anymore. I don't even know. They keep changing their stupid sizes.
Right, a few more questions, and I think that's enough for today. Do you think the Pro 8 will have an LTE option? Good question. I don't know. I did hear that Microsoft was planning to do a Pro 7 with LTE. That could be confusing the Pro 8 with LTE when that gets announced later this year. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's been people ask me like, I was going off about the Pro X. Like, you just get the Surface Pro with LTE. I'm like, bro, that device is so old. That came out in 2017.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
a dual
was
core.
it's a dual core chip. Like, that's weird. Like, I'm not going to spend. I think it's weird to spend that much money to buy a dual core. Because going to quad made a huge difference in the Pro's performance. Like, it really does. Um, and that's why I come back to the Pro X. It's an octa-core. It's 8 core. This is like the advantage that ARM has. Like, octa-core is no joke. Like, you can see it in the benchmarks. Like, it crushes a dual core. Um, but that said, 2017, LTE devices don't sell a ton. Otherwise, I think they would have refreshed it right away. But I think they're due for a refresh. So you think about it, kind of makes sense. They're going to do a Pro 8 whole redesign. They could be like, oh, we're going to do it now, so LTE is easier to be built in. Because it seems like they did LTE as like an afterthought sort of with the Pro, and it took them a little bit longer to engineer that. That's why there was that 6 month delay. Also, kudos to Microsoft for shipping Go 2 with LTE day one. Like,
Yeah.
I like that, instead of having to wait 3 months like what we did last time. So,
Will you be discussing the Duo specs this month? Probably. I'm still working out a few details, but I think it'll be this month.
a redesign is kind of confirmed. I don't know what kind of confirmed means. It's either confirmed or it's not. I will say, yes, the rumors are leaning towards that's what's happening, but it's definitely not been confirmed. It's not confirmed until I see it and Zach shows me the renders or a photo. It's not confirmed.
Do you think future Surface Earbuds will have active noise cancellation like headphones? If the feedback on Surface Earbuds is we'd like to have the option for active noise cancellation, I feel like it'd definitely be an option in software, because you can do that, right? You can do active noise cancellation through software.
No, well, so here's the problem. They go hand in hand. Like, active noise cancellation is a thing. So what people are talking about when they mean that is it usually has microphones
Yeah.
in the ear canal part and on the external part. There's different ways of doing this. You can have like two microphones or one microphone, but it's listening in, and then what it's doing is it's playing audio that is the exact opposite of the waveform coming in that you're hearing. And that waveform cancels out the other wave. And that's what noise canceling is. That's why when you use noise canceling headphones, it feels weird, like you're hearing like a pressure. It's actually playing noise. And that's why active noise canceling uses more battery life, because the speakers are now playing audio at a different waveform to cancel it out. And that's how that whole thing works. But it's only as good as it goes hand in hand with passive noise canceling, blocking out a lot of the external noise. I'm sure you could have active noise canceling without that, but it's not nearly as effective, which is why you see it primarily in over-the-ear headphones. And then when you do see an earbuds, it's like the AirPods Pro, they're ones that go into the ear canal and form a seal. So you get the passive noise canceling, and then you add an active, and now you get the really good experience. I feel like if you just add active to these, it's not going to be that great of an experience. I could be wrong. Who knows? There's some amazing technology. The fact that go research the science of active noise canceling and how it just tricks your brain into thinking there's no noise. Like, to me, that's just weird magic about how dumb our brains are. So I guess anything is technically possible. So who knows? But that's why I'm saying, like, how this stuff works. Yes, Curtis is asking. I'm using them to hear the earbuds to hear this podcast. I'm not using the microphone for the podcast. I'm using this big ass microphone here because we'll try it maybe at some point. But today I'm just using this as a microphone. Have they improved the clothish matter, Alcantara? I think you mean, in terms of resistance getting dirty. There's been no reports that they've improved that. It's a little bit darker this year. Well, who knows? I have no news on that.
Well, I'm starting seeing a lot of the same questions. I think that's enough for today.
Yeah, guys, if we're getting a little long here, but if you missed the beginning, we talked a lot about all the products early on, answered a lot of questions. This will be available for replay on YouTube and mixer.com/Windows Central. Mixer.com will be up probably within 30 minutes, but you can go back, rewatch it, and we spend a good 90 minutes going over all this stuff. So
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. We will likely be doing a Friday podcast because there's other Microsoft news this week that we need to talk about at the normal time, so 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 p.m. British Standard Time. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on all of the, when we're going live and stuff. But until then, we'll see you on Friday.